about the school parking.
Oh, yeah.
Did you read about that?
I did.
So we're all in favor of it. Yeah, you just
I've
want,
already gotten emails about people who want it.
okay.
Yeah. So,
And being in the new month now, I think
I'm first.
we'll start with you.
After the 15 minutes, he has a second 15 minutes. These items will leave the courthouse.
I don't know. Usually I'm gonna so you'll get to everybody.
Microphone on. Welcome, everyone. Beautiful day, beautiful evening. Finally got some good weather. Need to start off with roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Here.
Alderman Parker.
Here.
Alderman Poulos.
Here.
Alderman Geenan.
Here.
Alderman Clark.
Here.
Alderman Hurt.
Here.
Alderman Spargettis.
Present.
Mayor Tomes.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and also remain standing for a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, tonight we're starting our new format here. We are going to offer a public comment at the beginning of the meeting, which is new. We have only allocated at this point 30 minutes for, at this point, the open comments or public comments. We did have a request from an individual asking for a little longer than 5 minutes. We were going to do 5 minutes increments. Someone's asked for more than 5 minutes. So we have granted that to start off with. And then after that, each one of those people speaking that we'll bring up, we do need to maintain a 5-minute limit to try to get everybody in. So if we do hit the 30 minutes and not everybody spoke, we do have time at the end of the council meeting for then those people to speak. So you'll still have an opportunity, but it would be at the end. So this is new. Bear with us, walk through it, and we'll refine if we need to. So the first one up is going to be Joe Lemon. He's going to talk about the courthouse.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Do want to talk to you about the courthouse today. And Tim has set me up nicely, so I appreciate that very much. Incidentally, I've left you some materials, so I probably won't get to everything in the time that I have to talk. So the purpose of this is to help provide you with additional information and that you can study on your own. Of course, if you have additional questions, we'd be happy to answer them. In fact, happy to have a study session, anything that would be helpful for you in working on this important issue. Let me begin by saying what our mission is, and when I say us, I mean the people who are guiding together here to try to save this important historic public asset. Our aspiration here is not to perpetuate a fight, but rather to have a victory for the county, the city, and the citizens of Rock Island by preserving and reusing our valued historic public asset to be enjoyed for future generations to come, And by accomplishing this goal without imposing any additional costs on county taxpayers, that's an important element of it, and providing additional resources to the county if those are needed. So an important question is, why are we here today? Why should this be important to the city of Rock Island? We think there are four principal reasons why your council should care about this issue. The first has to do with community involvement. We're told all the time that municipalities and other local governments want the community to be involved. I think that you'll find that there's a lot of broad community support over this issue, and I hope that you would embrace us who are drawing this to your attention. The second is investment in our community, which is an important part of any healthy local economy and also just our community in general. Third, we want to save the taxpayers' dollars, and we have a vision to how to do that. And fourth, we would want to promote ethical and effective stewardship of our land use policies, which is an important role for the city of Rock Island. So the first issue here is community involvement. We have thousands and thousands of people who are supporting the preservation and reuse of this courthouse. And I was not able to produce for you, we've got like 47 pages of different comments that people have left about why this is an important issue for them. We believe that this is the single most significant public issue that's going around the county at this time. We like to think that we are the kinds of people that you like to have involved in the community. So we have people, internationally renowned architects, business leaders, school teachers, military officers, university professors, community organizers, labor union members, government officials, retirees, attorneys, and many, many more. I won't belabor the investments that my family has made in the community, but we try to do our part by serving the community well. We have been approached by people literally from all over the country who take interest in this, including a renowned architect from Chicago, whose name is Gunny Harbaugh. He's done a lot of fabulous projects. He's won Chicagoan of the Year on 2 separate occasions. And I just, you can read his letter on your later at your own convenience, but I do want to draw your attention on the bottom right-hand box here. It's hard to read, I apologize for that, but this is the Illinois Supreme Court renovation project that he oversaw. And of course, he supports the courthouse preservation. Where am I pointing? Up? There we go. Oop. Okay, so the second issue is economic development. There are these historic tax incentives that, tax credit incentives that are available for people who do renovation, people, entities, project managers, et cetera. And it's a key driver for economic development. Here, I'd like to draw your attention to the quote from our colleague from across the river here, Kyle Carter, who's the executive director of the Downtown Davenport Partnership. And he says it's safe to state that over $500 million has been invested in downtown Davenport over the past 20 years, and a significant portion of that has been directly related to the use of historic tax credits. And here, the reason why we have seen so much more of that in Iowa than Illinois is because Illinois didn't have a matching state tax credit, which went into effect only as of January of this year. So this is a really exciting opportunity. These other points that are on this page are prepared by the National Trust for the Historic Preservation. I'll leave those to you to review at your leisure. Okay. A lot of people have asked how these historic tax credits work, so they've prepared a simple model. So for example, if you invested $1.5 million in a rehab project, without any tax credits, your mortgage would be about $8,000 a month. With the 20% federal tax credit and the 20% state tax credit, that would drop you down to less than $5,000 a month. So that's how people are able to make these projects financially viable. And incidentally, it's worth mentioning that in the case of Illinois, it's not a 20% state tax credit, it's a 25%. So it's even more attractive. And it's worth mentioning also that as it relates to rehab projects, most of the money, 60%, goes into labor compared with materials, whereas with new construction projects, those numbers are inverted. So we've done a pro forma as to what that would look like in the case of the courthouse. Again, I won't go through it in detail with you now. Happy to do it at a later time if that's of interest to you. But if you look to the right-hand column over here, and you see the financial returns, what you can see is that this preservation concept is not just for the, granola eaters of the world. This is a capitalist idea. We're trying to incentivize people to want to invest in our historic properties, and this is a means of doing that. So you can see that while without the tax credits, you can get a 20% return on an investment like this. But once you add the tax credits, if you scroll down to the bottom there, you'll see that you get almost a 60% return on your investment. Way better than any other investment that you could probably find. Okay, the third issue relates to saving taxpayer dollars and ending the profligate spending by the county. And I want to just draw to your attention 3 different examples of construction and proposed renovation. On the right-hand column, what you see is the new Justice Center Annex, and that was built for about $608 per square foot. It's very common in the construction field to talk about a per square foot price. So that's what it worked out to. It was $28 million or so for that building. Meanwhile, if you look at the IHMVCU, it's a mouthful, new headquarters that they're building in Moline, they're getting a building twice the size for less than half the cost. So it works out to be about $288 per square foot. So you can have basically a Taj Mahal for less than $300 a square foot. And what we're talking about in terms of the renovating the courthouse would be about $148 per square foot. I want to mention there, of course, it's much more affordable to preserve this historic building than it is to build a new one. But I also want to point out that this is not an unrealistic expense. That's a pretty high number, and it's still a viable project even at that number. So we're not trying to be Pollyanna-ish about this. We have reasonable expectations about what the cost would be. We don't need to belabor the litany of headlines about the county that have been less than favorable, but they've been raising our taxes. Hope Creek's going to run out of credit by December. The credit rating dropped for the county. Hope Creek is $5.3 million in debt. They're using credit cards to pay vendors. And then most recently, we had an editorial from the Quad City Times recommending that the county accept the settlement terms of the lawsuit from Landmarks, Illinois. Okay, back to saving more taxpayer dollars. This issue about the settlement from Landmarks, Illinois, you probably have heard the news that the people who received the settlement offer did not disseminate that to the board members or to other county officials. So it was kind of hung up. So even if you don't care about the courthouse, I'm hopeful that you at least care about the process. This is our money, these are our assets, and they should be dealt with in a responsible manner. A related question here over in the right-hand box is, how much more of your money do you want the county to spend to defend a lawsuit that it should settle? $1 million more? $2 million more? I don't know what it costs for the city of Rock Island to engage in litigation, but in my experience, it's quite expensive. So what do we propose to get if we demolish the courthouse? We're going to spend $1.6 million more dollars for green space, which we have a lot of in the county already. Okay, the fourth reason we think that this is important for the City Council relates to the effective and ethical land use policies. In reading information that the city provides to us, we see that the City of Rock Island's mission to preserve the built environment and history of the community began in 1984 with the adoption of the Rock Island Preservation Ordinance and the creation of the Rock Island Preservation Commission. We have seen that the people who want to come to Rock Island, the residents that you're trying to attract, they're drawn by the history that exists in this community. And you should be credited with the efforts that you have made to preserve that history. And by the way, I think that people have reasonably relied on these assurances that you would be good stewards of the historic landscape here. And that's why we're asking you to take a role in this situation. This includes, for example, your requirement that any modification require a certificate of appropriateness. So we need to make sure, at a minimum, that all the due process is followed here. But please understand, there is no appropriateness to demolish this building. On to the third item on this subject. You are creating a historic district, and the historic courthouse is the anchor of this district. Another reason why you should join us in working hard to preserve this historic structure. We believe also, for most of us, this is actually a moral issue. And this was kind of brought into sharp relief in April when we saw the cathedral at Notre Dame in Paris burning. And the whole world was mourning at that time. And then we think to our own community and we see we've got a building of sort of proportionate age compared to our community. And here we are talking about intentionally destroying it. It doesn't make any sense to us. We're told by people who sit on the board that actually green space isn't the end goal, that the end goal is actually to take the green space and put in a juvenile detention center. And they won't share this publicly, but that's what people were telling us, as I say, who sit on the board. So we have to decide, again, with the land use policy, do we want Rock Island to be the jail capital of Illinois and spend another $30 million on a children's jail? I hope you would disagree. And if, incidentally, if we need that, we have a lot of other places that would be better suited for it, not the gateway to our city coming across the bridge from neighboring Iowa. So we return then to the moral question. We ask ourselves, well, why then are we proposing to destroy this? And we've heard a lot of answers from people who represent the county on this, and we can tell you that a lot of them sound sort of plausible, but in fact, really, when you look closer at them, they don't really hold any water. So the leading reason that people say we have to demolish it is because we're too late. We already made the decision to demolish the courthouse, therefore we have to tear it down. Well, as we all know, the courthouse is still standing. We can probably see it from the windows here. So we're not too late at all. In fact, if anything, any delays have actually benefited us because now we're eligible for those historic tax credits, the state version that only became available beginning in January of this year. Another myth that is perpetuated by some who represent the county is that the county reached out and no one was interested in taking over the courthouse. Now, when I'm involved in anything, for example, at the Abbey, we provide addiction treatment. Another issue that I'm starting to take a look at in our community is autism and how we can help families with autism. So I'm going to the people who are the experts in that already in our community and asking what needs do we have and how better can we serve our community. Well, similarly here, if you've got a historic building that's publicly owned that you don't know what to do with, you might look around our community and say, what are other examples here within the contours of our own city where we can say someone has done something like this before? And in fact, we have done that at Abbey Station, just down the road from us here. But in fact, the county didn't do any such outreach. They didn't contact me. They didn't produce any requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, any such outreach. In fact, people like me and others who came to the county and said, gee, how do we get involved? We were shunned. We were asked to go away, and that persists till today. Here's another myth. No one has made an offer to buy the building. We have a sign here. That's what you do when you want to sell a property. I think my real estate broker is here, David Levin. He's served us so well for several decades now. David, I promise you, I looked for a rule and rule sign to put up here, and I couldn't find one on the internet, so I should have just gone to one of our properties.
Couple of minutes left, so.
That's why we've got Remax. How much time?
2 minutes.
Okay. So when you want to sell something, if you've bought or sold your own house, you put a sign out. And incidentally, to whom would we make an offer? We're told that it's not for sale. The PBC members have told us that they don't own it and that the county owns it, and the county has told us just the reverse. We've heard that if we don't demolish the courthouse, we're going to get sued by Valley Construction. Well, here's the good news. The county is already being sued by Landmarks, Illinois, so you didn't avoid a lawsuit by moving forward with the demolition. And then with respect to any lawsuit that would be filed, what would be the damages? The damages would be limited to whatever costs that were actually incurred by Valley Construction. They haven't performed the demolition, so there would be little to no damages. We need the jobs that will be produced by the demolition. Of course, that's just bad math. We're proposing to put $8 million into the building. That's far greater than the $430,000 that would be paid to Valley Construction to demolish it. They say that we can't sell the courthouse because of the lawsuit filed by Landmarks, Illinois. In fact, the opposite is true. If you sold it, that would end the lawsuit. It would obviate the need for the lawsuit. The courthouse cannot be renovated and leased back to the county or any other governmental agency. In fact, we've seen other examples of that across the state, including in Rockford, Illinois, where a former school from 1898 has been converted and is now leased by the police department there. We're told that the courthouse poses a safety risk because it's too close to the new Justice Center annex. Well, in fact, we found countless examples where courthouses are proximate, much closer, in fact, to other buildings. The Vermilion County Courthouse, the Morgan County Courthouse, the U.S. District Court in Springfield, all are closer and present no such safety risk. We've studied the National Center for State Courts, their best practices about this. They don't address this as an issue. There's been this talk about snipers. You can read this again at your leisure, but we don't perceive that to be a realistic risk. In fact, the more likely risk would be what's called an active shooter, and that happens according to the FBI, on 2% of cases, and it would be 7 times more likely that an active shooter would be in the open space, the green space that they're proposing to create. And by the way, if the county is worried about the proximity of the new Justice Center to the historic courthouse, then why did they build the two things so close to one another?
You about done?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
I'm sorry, I try to, if you're close, I'll let you go, but if you're,
I think it's an important subject, but
it is, and there's several other people signed up to speak about it also, so.
well, will any of them yield their time for me?
Yeah, we talked about that, and we're not going to allow,
Okay.
have the there's a new format, so I apologize.
No problem.
But we're going to try to see if we can implement this, so.
So can somebody finish, could I finish this presentation for my 5 minutes?
If you're signed up,
Well, I came in, but it was gone.
so then, we've got a few other people that have signed up first here, so.
I didn't get a chance to sign.
And Tom, maybe he can. We got to get to the other people first here, and then when it gets down to yours, then yes. Okay, so we have actually Mike Baxter signed up. We've talked about not assigning it, but at this point, we'll try. Go ahead, Joe.
Could we make a compromise here where if we say, okay, let Joe finish, and then that closes the conversation about the courthouse? Would that be a good compromise with the public? Let Joe use up everybody's time. We understand that there's lots of people here to talk about the courthouse. Let him finish the presentation, and then none of the other people that have signed up to talk about the courthouse will talk about the courthouse. Is that an acceptable compromise, everybody?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that acceptable, Lou?
Anybody opposed?
Yeah, or just wait till after. You can still speak. It would be at the end of the meeting, end of the council meeting.
Are there any other people signed up to speak beside about the courthouse?
Two other people.
That's not about the courthouse?
There's 3 more people signed up for the courthouse.
What about other than that? Do we have any other
Yes, there
topics?
is 3 others for other items that
So-
are on the agenda.
So let's make sure they can get before and let the courthouse finish up at the end, please. That's my suggestion.
I think that's correct. So hang on, Joey, why don't you take a seat here for a second? And
Tell you what, your time is important. I've given you the materials. You read it on your own. I'll conclude for the evening. If you have questions, you can contact me. I've written to each of you, so you know how to get a hold of me. And as you say, you're trying a new practice, and I'm hopeful that you would take this issue seriously.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And we do take it seriously, and it's not like we cut any topic short on purpose by any means because we don't want to hear it. We're just trying to fit everybody and give everybody an opportunity. But, yeah, if you want to wait till the courthouse at the end and see if there's time, and we can talk about the other topics, that'd be great. If you don't mind, Mike,
I mean, respectfully, let's just follow the original plan. Let Mike talk about it. Let everybody talk about it.
that's fine. We can do that too, if you guys are okay with that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Baxter from Muscatine, Iowa. Appreciate Rock Island City Council keeping an eye on the old courthouse. I think the city of Rock Island is a very good city council group of people, and you're definitely aware that what we're trying to do, and we're aware of what you're trying to do, and we all know what's wrong, and there's not much sense in talking about it. So thank you for keeping watch on things for us, and if there's something comes up where you'd like previously you assisted by stopping demolition when there was no permit. You know, that was a very excellent move on the city's part, and we thank you much for that. And we're engaged a little bit ourselves, and we got Joe, he's just, you know, I can't say anything that would be an improvement on what we're so lucky to have him, you know, to be watching and helping out our situation. But we're still looking into some of the problems that are going on over there, because it takes a while to absorb what happened. And so all this time going by, you know, it's not being wasted, because we discover new things that it's not easy to find out when people don't talk to you or share information with you. But we got Lowe here, and he's a architect that is just extremely knowledgeable about the old building and how it's built. And, you know, and to have a guy like that sitting here that's, well, he's not as old as the building, but, you know, it's great to have somebody with that much expertise that's ready to step in and make sure that it's repaired properly. And we got some good people, you know, if we just have a chance to implement, you know, a takeover. And I think if it don't happen, we're able to save it. I think it'll go down in the history books as something really bad happened in Rock Island that wasn't quite proper. So that's all I got to say, and thank you for your letting us talk. And
No problem. Thank you.
Joe's fine document he prepared tonight, which is really a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next we have, is it Jenna Miller? I can't read the last part, so I'm sorry.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Congressmember, and members for letting us speak today on this issue. We are here to talk about the 2-hour parking in front of the Rock Island School District, the Rock Island High School, sorry. We are asking for the 14 spots that are on 23rd Avenue between 14th Street and 15th Street to be taken off of the 2-hour restriction and being allowed to park there. We have over 200 members of the school staff at Rocky. This includes teachers, administrators, counselors, class aides, office personnel, security, cafeteria workers, tutors, and specialists that come in to help our students every day. The fact is, we do not have enough parking over on our side of the building. There are some parking spaces. Some people said there's a lot of parking over on 25th Avenue. There's not a whole lot of parking on 25th Avenue between all the teachers who are already there, all the students that are there by grade level. There are not parking available over there. It's also heavily congested. If anybody's ever gone to 25th at school time, there are a lot of students late every day because of the congestion that's coming up and down that road trying to get students into the building. At Rocky, our students are only allowed to enter through that side of the building, so the students park over there, the parents drop off over there for the most part. So it is very, very congested. To ask another 100 staff members to go over there is, you know, a safety issue. We're asking for those 14 spots to be allowed for teachers and staff to park over on our side. Right now, with the 2-hour parking, we have 4 minutes between class periods. It's hard enough to go to the bathroom, let alone run down out of your classroom, lock your doors, kick your kids out of the class. I've done this because came in late, not late for school, but after 7:30 and couldn't get a parking spot in the parking lot. I had to line my students up at the door, shoosh them out as soon as the bell rang, lock the door, run to the parking lot. And I'm old, and I don't run really well, okay? And run down to the parking lot, tried to get into my car, tried to find an open spot so I can move and not get a ticket. We've had some teachers that have had over $100 worth of fines. We had one that has over $250 worth of fines for the year. Our job is to educate our students. Our job is to be there for those kids and to provide support and provide supervision. Who's watching my class when I'm trying to run out there and trying to find a parking space? So we're asking you to think about the fact that we need to be able to have a place to park when we come to work every day. We're not asking, to have front row parking, and we're wondering why this is 2-hour parking there anyhow. It's only during the school day. You can park there any other time. You can park there for football games. I know, because I've come and watched many football games and track meets, and I can park up and down that road. I can park in the residential area, and I'm not in trouble. But I'm only in trouble in the residential area because I'm a teacher and I'm there during school hours. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As we said, students will not be parking over on that side. Students are not allowed to come in that side of the building. 2 years ago, that rule was made. The students have to enter the other side of the building. So I know maybe at one time there was a lot of students parking over there. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for you to allow our staff and our professionals to be able to have access to our building. Parents pickup will not be changed, parent drop-off and pickup. We're already there. The teachers are already using those spots. It's not like it's open for parents to come in and drop off and park in there. We're not adding any more parking that's not already there. So we're not, taking away something from parents, as somebody in the said from the survey. Students, like I said, had designated parking spots on the other side of the school that they can park in. Staff members utilize these 14 parking spaces. We're going to keep using these 14 parking spaces. We're just asking to be able to use these 14 parking spaces without having to get there, in those 4-minute breaks. Think about that. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm on the first floor. And for me to run there, I was late getting back to my class, okay? Like I said, I ran. But we have people on the second floor, the third floor. We have no elevator except for on the other side of the building, and not everybody has a key. So to try to get there is just not realistic. So we're asking you to allow us to come to our job, to do our job well, and not to have to worry about not having a place to park, or to have to pay $100 or $200 worth of fines every year. Is there any other questions? Anybody have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
All right, the next one up was Lowell.
10 seconds. Lowell Milani, Rock Island. We are very fortunate to have someone like Joe Lemon active in this participation, and we are very happy for the city council to back us in whatever we've been doing. And I hope that this all works out, but thank you very much. So I quit at that, give my time to Joe.
That's fine. Actually, what we'll do is we will try to finish the courthouse. I know there's some people didn't sign up, but the last one the courthouse did sign up was Tom. And so if you want to take your 5 minutes? Or give it to Joe, is that an option, or? No. We're going to stick to the rules at this point. Give it a try.
Tom Sparkman, 1600 18th Avenue, beautiful Rock Island, Illinois. I'm speaking on behalf of citizens of Rock Island. I've lived in this community most of my life. I have a lot of friends, family, and neighbors. I talk to people quite often. I try to bring it up and as non-biased as I can be. I swear to God, I have one neighbor that's indifferent. I have one friend that says tear it down. Almost everyone else wants to save this beautiful asset. I hope that 30 years from now that my great-great-grandchildren are able to look at this beautiful repurposed courthouse as opposed to a green lawn or a juvenile detention center. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince,
I didn't get a chance to
yeah,
sign.
yeah. So I hate to do it, but you have to be on the end at this point, because we had to take it down as soon as we shortly after the meeting, started the meeting with the new format. So at the end, then anybody that didn't get signed up will speak. So we're actually out of time, very close. And then actually one last would be Chase with the locks, real quick. And then we have to move on with the agenda. And at the end, we'll have anybody else that wishes to speak. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chase Norris. I'm the founder of Clock Inc. LGBT Community Center here in Rock Island. Thank you for everything Rock Island has done for us. You've not only welcomed us, but you have supported us, and because Last time that I was here, you provided financial assistance for us to build a counseling office that we can offer quality sessions at our community center. When deciding which city we wanted to choose for our home, we could not have gotten any luckier with Rock Island, and so we're very grateful for all city council members. I am not only here to express our appreciation, but also to invite you to our grand opening tomorrow at 3:30. Not only will we have Mayor Tomes speaking at our ceremony, we also have Illinois State Representative Mike Halpin speaking, and we have our big open house, which is my excuse for a really big party, from 4 to 7 following, and so we hope that you are able to join. But why I'm here today, last week I had called my friend Dave Geenan, who has been very generous and being a huge support for us, and I asked if Rock Island did anything for Pride Week, which, happy Pride Month, that is what June is, but he directed me to Chandler, who without, I think maybe within an hour, cleared his schedule and walked around the district of Rock Island with me to count how many flags are along the parade route, which is June 22nd, and wanted to know what I could do to temporarily replace some of the current flags with rainbow flags along the parade route to show that the city of Rock Island is supportive of the LGBT community during the month of June. And after speaking with Dave, told him my big fundraising plan, and so that we would be raising money to sell pride flags and distribute them in the city for individuals, families, local businesses. They would donate $50 for a flag in recognition of it being the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. Those who would donate would select a group or an individual to dedicate their flag in honor to be displayed during the Quad Cities Pride Week, which is the 22nd to the 29th. We immediately got to work and reached out to close friends, family, allies. Our goal was to sell 50 flags in 1 week, and before I came, I counted, and we are over 120, and we're still getting more. So I do have with me, and I want to present the city with just a small number of the flags because they wouldn't fit in my backpack. And so that have been raised currently from Rock Island residents, businesses, organization, and recent Rocky grads. Last night, WQAD aired a story about my own personal journey from transitioning from female to male, and also about our grand opening. While there was much love and support from the community, there were several hate comments from individuals that are currently living in the area about what Clock Inc. represents. Our mission is to provide a safe and secure, non-judgmental place for those who express their true selves. Even with those negative and hurtful comments, the people of Rock Island flooded us with more support, and after our news segment aired, we have more than doubled our flag fundraising goal. And so we have flags in honor of local affirming churches, struggling LGBT youth, sons, daughters, and the entire LGBT community of the Quad Cities. A friend, Kathy, called and said she had walked across the street and asked her neighbor, who is openly gay, if she could purchase a flag for him. He said he already has one, but flies it inside his kitchen. And she asked, if I fly one, would you fly yours outside? Overcome with support and love, he said yes, and for the first time, this 50-year-old man whose brother passed away from AIDS received encouragement from a neighbor to proudly express who he was. And so I want to thank everyone. We want everyone to feel welcomed and included, and so we are still taking pride flag donations for our fundraiser, and we are very thankful to Mayor Tomes and Dave's family, who were one of the first 2 families to donate pride flags. And as a gift, we have a flag for each of the city council members. And so I want to thank you guys again for being just a great city, and we are very grateful that we chose Rock Island. And so I will give those flags to Chandler, and then he can give them to you, and hopefully we see you tomorrow at 3:30.
You will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna, yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I don't know when he came in. I signed up after Tom Sparkman. You gave him all the time that he wanted. I'm here as a former alderman, and I want my 5 minutes now. I don't want it afterwards. The list is there. You've seen the list.
Correct.
Other people didn't. It was my time to speak before he got up. Nothing against him.
You have 5 more minutes.
Whatever.
Pardon?
We have 5 more minutes till 7:30.
Just an item.
Yeah, well, we started actually a little, we started at 6:49 is when we started this process.
Both have 5 minutes, correct?
Correct. Each party had 5 minutes, up to 30 minutes, and ahead of time, we talked about with Joe and also with Chase, that was a prearranged deal. Chase was actually officially afterwards, after the 30-minute deal.
You should have had him
So-
speak afterwards.
And so,
Mayor,
here now.
is it okay if he just speaks? It was just 5 minutes and more.
Thank you.
if people, okay,
It's up to you, Mayor, but I'm just asking, just to get it out the way.
My name's Virgil Mayberry, live 559 22nd Avenue in the great city of Rock Island. I'm here tonight concerning this article that the newspaper wrote, which is totally incorrect. They said that they went back to 2015 for this article. You wasn't sitting here, you wasn't. The 3 people that were sitting here were P.J. Foley, Kate Hodel, and may he rest in peace, Chuck Alston. They never mentioned their name in the article at all. This whole article here was basically about me, okay? Now, they can feel whatever way they want. I've talked to people this weekend because it came out, I believe, Thursday night on the internet, came out in the paper yesterday. Why did it come out against me? Well, I know why. And I tell people, if you want to find out, ask Tom Behrman that is at the newspaper, let him answer that question. I can't answer his questions, but I would like to say the newsletter, I'm the only one that ever published a newsletter for my constituents. Like there's something wrong with that. It's got in here that the dry cleaning, the police chief, the police department, the fire department, the shirts that I got cleaned say City of Rock Island, red, yellow, and white, okay? And the other people, like Randy, have these. They get them cleaned. I didn't do anything wrong while I was here, but all this says that I done something wrong. I'm not going to sit back and let somebody railroad me for whatever reasons, and I got a good idea why. Okay, the other thing, bulletproof vests. I have represented this city in the murder capital of the United States, Chicago, East St. Louis, Rockford. Well, here, Rock Island is the safest city in the United States. Yeah, I bought that, and Randy, it was approved. I did nothing wrong, okay? The custom jewelry, the name tag you've got on that says Rock Island, Illinois, I took those and made cufflinks out of them and gave them to Mayor Pauley and to Mr. Eisenberry, that's head of IMAG, used to be Missman Stanley. These people want to go places in the United States and be proud. They wear French cuff shirts like I do. That's where they went. Was there something wrong with that? Well, evidently the newspaper thinks so. The other thing, gasoline. The second ward, which you're aware of because you walked it, you know the second ward. It goes from Douglas Park all the way out to Highway 67 and Milan, okay? That side of 67 is not Milan.
you get 2 minutes.
Thank you. That is the second ward, okay? For 3 years, I drove back and forth sometimes 2 or 3 times a day to my constituents to find out their problems, okay? You will have to do that now, okay? The last year, I charged for that gas. Why? I felt that I should do that. The other thing, there was an organized effort in this city to get rid of me, and that's fine. That's what democracy is, right, Dave? Organize. You get together, you can do this. You admitted that you gave money to my opponent. People gave it to you. You said it wasn't your money. People gave it to you. You gave it to him. Some people think that's laundering. Whether it is or not, it happened, okay? And you admitted to it right here, okay? We've had great men sit in this seat that you're sitting in. To me, and this is my opinion, you, Doug House, Marshall Douglas, Dylan Parker, Josh Shipp have done terrible things toward this city, and mainly to get rid of me in the name of unions and all this, that, and other. Well, why did you get rid of Reverend Williamson and Terry Brooks off the Housing Authority? They came to me and talked to me about it. I said, well, what did he tell you? You didn't tell him nothing. Well, you sit in that seat and call Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, one of the greatest men in this country, a coon. A coon? You did that, and it's on record. Did that newspaper report it? No. Mediacom has it. It's there from now on. From what I've been told, your motto is let's make Rock Island white again. Well, I got news for you. This ain't going away. Thank you.
All right, we will now continue on with the rest of the meeting.
Can I?
Yes.
Just a real quick comment about the people here tonight for the courthouse. I just wanted to thank you for showing up today. I know that there's been a lot of internal conversation and external conversation about whether the courthouse is a matter that affects the city of Rock Island. But frankly, when I look out in the crowd and I see pillars of our Rock Island community, like Diane, like Vince, like everybody that has spoken tonight, I mean, you people were here building this city before I was even born. So all of the issues that Joe brought up in his presentation, I mean, word for word, that was in the resolution that this city council passed a while ago about the economic development, the matters regarding taxes. That all affects the city of Rock Island. And so I'm proud to be many of your neighbor, and I'm proud to serve on this city council representing you. And thank you very much for all your work you've been doing. Thank you.
In the same lines, I'd like to lift up the next generation. Chase is just a recent graduate of Western Illinois University, and what he tried to explain to you all is that there is hate in this community, and love wins. Love over trumps hate. We had 126 flags. People were laughing at Chase, thinking he couldn't get 30. He's raised over $10,000 in 1 week because this community, 39 high schoolers. 39 high schoolers called him and said, we're scrapping together our money. This is a community that says we don't care who you are or who you love. We want you here because it's you that makes Rock Island great. So we have pillars in this community that are doing great, but let's not forget this next generation. These are the future of Rock Island. This is a big historic moment. I hope you all show up tomorrow and support this young man who is making a difference in the lives of people who are struggling to figure out who they are. I think that's just really important to lift up, and thank you for the time.
And Dave, I have to totally agree with you. It's wonderful to have young people in the community with positive activism. And that's what he's shown since he stepped in the doors of Rock Island, and it's great. It makes us more diverse, and it makes us better. So
We have 5 people on my street that will be flying a pride flag because they are so happy that they live in a neighborhood and in a community that is welcoming and inclusive, and that was part of our goal, that we are an intentionally welcoming, inclusive city. So Randy, congratulations, you met a goal.
All right, item number 6.
Plenty goals.
Minutes of the May 13th, 2019 and May 20th, 2019 meetings.
Move to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Yes, Judith?
I was going to say, if we wanted to split that up so that Alderman Poulos could vote for the May 20th meetings, but not for the May 13th meetings, because he
Oh,
wasn't
because you
here.
weren't here. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
2 votes.
All right, well then, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 13th.
I'll second.
And I will respectfully abstain.
All right, moved, second, any discussion? Got an abstention? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Second motion.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of May 20th as printed.
I'll second that.
There we go.
Moved and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item number 7.
Minutes of the executive session of May 20th, 2019.
Move to approve the executive session minutes.
Second,
Moved and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Motion carries. Item 8, update. Couple items here. We have Starlight Review Summer Concerts. The Park and Recreation Department Free Concerts at Lincoln Park Series returns for its 63rd year with concerts every Tuesday night throughout the summer. The Tail Fins will perform on June 11th, and on June 18th, the Josh Duffy Orchestra will be playing. Make a night of it and enjoy food, drink for purchase from Hy-Vee Grill starting at 5 p.m. and the music starting at 7 p.m. Call the Rain line at 309-732-7246 after 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday to check the status of an event for inclement weather. Park Community Cleanup Days. Grab your work gloves and join us on June 22nd at Sunset Park from 9 to 11 a.m. for the first of a series of special cleanup days. Bring a friend or a group to help pull weeds, lay mulch, pick up trash and sticks. Service opportunities will differ based on location and season. Please contact Nikki at 309-732-7280 if you are bringing a large group or any other questions. Also, I'd like to mention that the Knights of Columbus had their 40th award nights last night for the outstanding service for first responders. We had Officer Pat Richter. They're in two different things. Richter. Then I can't repeat it. But was the police officer that was honored last night. He normally is in council with us tonight, but he either partied too much last night or something. He's not here. And then on the firefighter, Anthony Shuley was honored on the fire department. So congratulations to those two gentlemen for getting that award. Well deserved. We have item number 9.
Mayor Holmes will close the regular meeting and open a public hearing regarding the HUD CDBG 2019 to 2023 Consolidated Plan and Program Year 2019 Annual Action Plan.
All right, I'll close the regular meeting and open the public meeting. So if there's any, I don't know, Chandler, you speaking, or who's going to speak on this? And then if there's anybody in the public.
This is the last of the public hearings in regards to our consolidated plan. This is our 5-year plan that will tell us how to spend our money, where we want the $1 million plus to be spent within the community. The scope of expenses we feel are actually quite encouraging. We've opened it up. Before we were very, very centric on housing, and we weren't really doing programs we were doing code enforcement, so we had a stick, if you will. We weren't actually finding programs to make the carrot happen. A couple weeks ago, we went to HUD up in Chicago, met with them, talked to them about what we're trying to do, and they're very, very pleased with the fact that we're making things happen. So this is the first hearing and the last hearing on this.
All right. Is there anybody in the public, anybody out there want to speak in regards to this topic? Anybody, it's open to anybody in the audience. Anybody want to speak? Like it, dislike it? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting. And this, because it's the second reading, we need a motion.
Move to accept and approve the 2019-2023 Consolidated Plan and Program Year 2019 Annual Action Plan as submitted.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Well, first, before I get into the question, Chandler, I want to be sure and thank everybody who put this extensive report together, and thank you for the executive summary that was a lot shorter.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my question is on page 3 of the executive summary. It says that the code enforcement activities will be coupled with investment in improved infrastructure projects in those identified neighborhoods. So my question is, what would be an example of an infrastructure project and who would fund it?
The funds with our HUD program will be the federal funds. We are looking at investment occurring as we start to work with homeowners. We also are looking at, that's phase 1. Right now, when we work with homeowners, it's a stick. I'm taking them municipes, and I'm going to cite you for violations. Okay, but that doesn't really work very well. What we're trying to do is now create programs where we're saying, okay, here's a carrot. Let me work with you. Here's some funds to maybe fix the roof, fix the other violations. So there'll be some private investment by the homeowner, but also through us. But the phase 2 of this starts to go into the rental inspection and working in those targeted areas. We talked, about a month and a half ago about targeted areas, how we're going to move our funds. We haven't really done that with landlords. And when we went up to HUD about 3 weeks ago, we talked to them about it, and they're like, this is a great program. We have a couple other cities that have done some stuff that you want to do that we think are good programs for you to copy. And so rather than just violating the landlords and giving them notices and taking them to court, why not try to find a way to enhance and supplement their abilities to make the repairs? Because when you get down to it, it's not about hitting people with a stick. It's about making sure that the homeowner who's right at that threshold where they're barely holding on to their home can keep their house. Doesn't make any sense to put a $50,000 judgment on these people's homes.
So when you talk about improved infrastructure projects, you're talking about improvements on the housing?
See, infrastructure will be, how am I going to put this? Infrastructure will be working with the Public Works Department, because a large component of HUD is removing architectural barriers. And that would be ramps and things and sidewalks that make sure that you don't have trip and fall hazards and that those who may be in a wheelchair can actually access those things. So we will be using those. Streets are a very difficult thing for HUD to fund because it's not really in their purview, but I can do definitely the sidewalks and the ramps. We'll also look at doing things with, I guess, the curbs and gutter and things like that, but.
And so the CDBG funds would or might be available to make those improvements?
Oh, they will be. They're programmed in. This year, from the targeted area, I believe it's about 700,000. We're looking at through code enforcement, but also working with the Public Works Department, Police Department, the Parks Department, to look at projects that we can utilize these funds for to remove architectural barriers, ADA compliance, infrastructure type things.
Thank you.
What about streetlights? Is lighting part of the infrastructure?
Streetlights we haven't really looked at yet because a lot of times we don't own the poles, so it's kind of difficult. And really looking with HUD, there's a lot of things that are open to us now that we have the 5-year plan. It's a little bit broader than what we had. So we look at anything that we can attach ourselves to be able to utilize these funds.
Yeah, no, this is exciting, and I've repeatedly thanked, and I'll thank again for all the work that you and your staff have done on this. Since the Greenbush meeting where we rolled this out to the neighbors, I continue to field question as to when can I apply or when can I request this assistance. There's lots of need in Greenbush. Do you have a timeline or an idea as to when I can start sending people your way?
The code enforcement program, last week, Elizabeth, our consultant, to help us put the policies and procedures, dropped off her draft for us. Now we're going through to make sure it works. And then I've got to assign my individuals to the actual tasks. I would imagine July, we're going to be ready to go.
Cool.
Yeah, this will be exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you.
All right. There's no further comments. I need a roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Yes.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item number 10.
Mayor Tomes will close the regular meeting and open a public hearing regarding the HUD CDBG Regional Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice.
All right, I close the regular meeting and open a public.
Okay, this is another lovely HUD thing we get to deal with. But this is something that we've been working on for quite a while. We have a consultant that we partnered with Moline and Davenport, Mosaic Community Planning. Jeremy Gray is here, and he has a couple things he'd like to walk through with you if you'd like. He has a small presentation on Rock Island and what the analysis did. Also, I did provide each one of you this document here. It is kind of an executive summary, if you will, on Rock Island and the findings. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy here and let him do his thing.
Cool.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for having me tonight. My name is Jeremy Gray with Mosaic Community Planning, and like Chandler just mentioned, this is a regional study, so the City of Rock Island jointly funded it together with the City of Moline and the City of Davenport. which is an important way to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but by understanding that your housing market is a regional market, something that happens in Rock Island affects people's housing choices in other parts of the region too, I think is an important understanding. And so approaching this study from that lens was a good way to go about it, I think. So just earlier, you just approved the consolidated plan related to your Community Development Block Grant, your CDBG funds. And as Chandler mentioned, the city receives a little over $1 million a year. One of the conditions that HUD puts on those funds is that the city annually certify to the federal government that you will affirmatively further fair housing choice. HUD's definition of that, and I'll read it to you. It means taking meaningful actions in addition to combating discrimination. So those outright kind of forms of discrimination that we all think of when we hear that word. In addition to that, taking other meaningful actions that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to opportunity based on protected characteristics, those protected classes being race, ethnicity, color, religion, whether your family includes children, whether you have a disability, those sorts of characteristics. So the city certifies that you are doing that, and so this study is part of that, and every 5 years the city is required to update this analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. We looked at 4 primary fair housing issues in the study, and those were integration and segregation, areas of poverty, particularly where those areas of poverty also overlap with communities that have a large percentage of non-white residents, so we call those areas of racially or ethnically concentrated poverty. That's HUD's terminology there, actually. Access to opportunity, particularly where opportunity and that access is disproportionate based on race and ethnicity. And we looked at housing need, things like cost burden, which is when a household spends more than 30% of its income on its housing costs, substandard housing, overcrowding, all of those factor into this housing need aspect. There's a lot of data that HUD provides its grantees, mapping, things like that, that's really helpful. And grantees like Rock Island, the charges that we provide an analysis of that. But we know that it's also important to hear from residents, people who live and work in the community about their experiences with housing here. We engaged, we estimate a little over 200 or so total people through surveys or questionnaires or stakeholder interviews, public meetings, focus groups, lots of different sorts of avenues that we provided for people to participate in our process. But we estimate over 200 people did participate. Talking about segregation and integration, the region is becoming more diverse, which is, I think, probably something that's not surprising to any of you. Comparing 1990, so going back a couple of decades, the region was a little over 90% white. Today, it's about 82% white. In the region, about 7.9% of the population is Black or African American, 7.6% is Latino. So those are some significant differences. Those are still somewhat small groups regionally. However, the change is pretty dramatic too. When we talk about segregation, there is something, so I mentioned where we're looking at where areas of high poverty overlap with areas that have large numbers or large concentrations of racial and ethnic minorities. In the entire Quad Cities region, there is one census tract that meets HUD's definition, which is that it's a majority or greater than 50% non-white, also greater than 40% poverty rate, and that tract is in Rock Island. It's the southern part of the first ward, kind of the Douglas Park area, south of that, I believe. So that is the one area in the whole region where that type of characteristic exists. That's important because when we look at some other things, I mentioned opportunity factors is something that we reviewed as well. And so when we look at where proficient schools are, where we look at where people are most engaged in the workforce versus not, it's important to see those kinds of areas pointed out so that we can see how people who live in these, we call them RCAPs, racially concentrated areas of poverty, where they are residing. There's a lot of maps, and in your handout, you see a few. There's bigger versions of those maps. I realize that they're hard to read in this handout in the full report, and I hope that you'll look at those, where we do look at kind of population dynamics and with that kind of access to education, access to jobs in the labor market, access to transit, access to environmental quality, things like that. I mentioned housing need. So when we looked at housing need, if we take all these different, we call them housing problems together, so that's cost burden, coming back to that, overcrowding, substandard housing, about 29% of Rock Island residents experience one of those housing problems. I'm sorry, about 33% of Rock Island residents experience one of those. 29% of white Rock Island residents experience one of those housing problems, and compare that with about 87% of Native Americans who live in Rock Island, 40% of Hispanic households in Rock Island, almost 7% of black households in Rock Island. So some big disparities there that come out in the housing need analysis. And then, so the conclusion of the study, we find 6 different impediments to fair housing choice, and I'll just kind of briefly touch on each one of these. There's some more detail on them in this handout. The last few pages of the handout include some of the goals and action items that the city of Rock Island, but also its partners, Moline and Davenport, are committing through this plan to work on over the next 5 years. So you see that here in this handout. But just briefly, those 6 impediments to fair housing choice. The first is a continued need for an increased supply of decent, affordable housing. That was kind of the first thing out of the mouths of many of the people that we heard from and talked about through the engagement process. And kind of the housing need data that we looked at points to that as well. Second, a lack of geographic diversity in affordable housing choices. So when we look at where affordable housing is located within the Quad Cities region, there's not a lot of diversity in those choices. If you need affordable housing, you might be stuck in some neighborhood or some neighborhood or some neighborhood, but you don't have the ability to find affordable housing anywhere you might want to live in the Quad Cities. When we looked at where people use housing choice vouchers, or we oftentimes know those as Section 8 vouchers, a lot of those regionally are in Rock Island in the First Ward. Also in Davenport, I think north of the Interstate 80 is an area that has a lot of voucher use. There are also neighborhoods in each of the 3 cities where there are no vouchers in use at all. So kind of working with landlords, helping landlords learn to accept those vouchers and participate in that program helps open up housing opportunities for people in other neighborhoods that have other mixes of opportunity factors that might be important to them. Third, accessible housing for people with disabilities is in short supply. There's a lot of factors related to this. Some have to do with just it's difficult to build. It's often requires a lot of subsidy to build, so there's some funding type things there as well as maybe also some zoning issues that we point out for each of the 3 cities that we include in our report that might make construction or development of that sort of housing type easier for someone who would be looking to do that. Fourth, housing options for people with housing options for people with disabilities is limited. And so kind of coming at that same issue, but through a different tack here, but looking at ways that codes can be tweaked to provide more opportunities for that type of housing. Fifth, protected classes face barriers to fairly accessing housing. So those protected classes, people based on their race, their ethnicity, their color, religion, those sorts of factors. Home ownership rates for minority families are markedly lower than for white families. We looked at lending, even controlling for income. There's big disparities between that. And so I think that that's something that is worth looking into further. And finally, community perceptions influence housing choice. And this kind of comes to input that we heard from people and stakeholders that we talked with. People who might have been told at some point, oh, you shouldn't live in Rock Island, that's not a good place to live. And that might be true, it might not be true, but people don't have good information about those sorts of things. And I think that there's some work that could be done to kind of boost everybody's impressions and perceptions of the different kinds of communities, make people more aware of the good things that are happening, not just in Rock Island, but in all of Rock Island's neighborhoods and communities, talking that up and making sure that people throughout the region know that Rock Island is a good place to live. There's good neighborhoods throughout, affordable housing located here, all of those sorts of factors. So I'll conclude that as my presentation, but I believe this is a hearing, so I'll step back.
I have a question, if you don't mind, real quick. Part of your assessment, I guess, part of your process in doing this, do you look at previous assessments that the city has done for impediments to fair housing? We have to do this, what, every 5 years, you said?
That's right.
So did you look at the last one that the city of Rock Island had performed?
We did, yeah.
When was that? Do you
That was,
know?
I believe, a 2013 study. Does that sound right?
Okay. You look like you're going to say something, so I'm curious on what you want to say. And then my second thing is, I guess, how are we doing? Like, were any of the issues that were identified 5 years ago addressed in the city, or long-term, how's it looking?
Sure. So the thing that I was going to say is HUD's regulations around these studies changed pretty significantly in that interim, and so the 2013 report is different than this report today. Some of that is a function of different regulations, so I just would say that if you're comparing the two.
Sure.
We do have a section in our full report, it's not in the handout, that does go through each of the recommendations from the 2013 report and kind of reports on what's been done about those. And to answer shortly, I think your question about how are we doing, we were hard-pressed to find many of those that there hadn't been action taken on. I think that, I can't say that they all have been completed or carried out fully, or some of them are somewhat aspirational and things that a city like Rock Island should always be working toward. But I think that it was, we were able to find progress toward all of those actions, and there's more information on that in the full report too.
That's good. Thank you.
Alderman Guinea?
As the commissioner that the mayor has appointed to the Rock Island Housing Authority, there's a couple things I'd like to point out in your report that probably should be changed.
Okay.
When you talk about the affordable housing locations, the Rock Island Housing Authority has listened to the 2013 plan. They have been in the transition of transitioning all of their properties. We currently are under contract to transition Spencer Towers away from public housing. So by this time next year, hopefully we will have no public housing in Rock Island. They all will be housing voucher choices. So actually currently we only have 2 public housing locations. Sunset Heights is listed as a public housing. It is now called Two Rivers Point, and it is now a housing choice voucher. Also, Lincoln Homes, we just found out, this is very good news. When you talk about some of your impediments, I think we can cross off the list now. When you talk about new affordable housing development, whether by cities with CDBG funding or home funding, they're not taking advantage of that. I don't know if it's been offered to them, but they have received approval from HUD to tear down the rest of Lincoln Homes, which is wonderful. They're going to start that this fall.
Okay.
We're waiting for HUD's approval to settle something so that we can transition that property into their our new game in town. They call it Community Home Partners. That will be built as Lincoln residents. There's 49 housing units that will be put in that neighborhood that's going to look just like Linden Lane. So when you ask how Rock Island is doing, we are blowing every other city out of the water in terms of how we treat our residents and provide them affordable housing. I'm an advocate because I'm on the commission. We just had our goal setting with Lyle on Saturday, and there is a lot of excitement. Now they're talking about providing senior housing, and they would like the mayor to join me and their board chair to ride around because they have some really creative ideas that I'm excited for Susan to come to the study session and show you all. So thank you for your study. But this all has been developing in the past 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
The other person who has just recently been appointed that replaced Reverend Williamson is another local pastor, a new generation. Reverend Rob McCoy, he's at the United Methodist Church at Two Rivers in downtown. And then myself are the new 2 members of that, and also Community Home Partners. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for the information.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there who would like to speak on this topic?
And I believe that's a $23 million development project in Lincoln residence, and they will be putting fire sprinklers in.
Anybody else like to speak on this topic?
Yep, that's been going on for a little while now, Dave.
They've been working
Yeah,
really
they've been
hard
re-
at it. They're so excited about it.
And I just want to thank you, Chandler, and your team for, when I'm asking questions, I don't like to get up here and just ask you a million questions. I like to actually know what's going on. And you've been wonderful about explaining to me what you're doing in the first ward to try to answer all those questions. So I just want to say thank you and your team for that.
All right, very good. So I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting. And there, at this point, this first reading, so there's no motion that needs to be made on this.
I have a question for our staff.
Yes.
So there are a number of action items and goals identified in this document. Is Colleen going to be the one kind of, keeping track of how we're doing? And I know I've asked, and Randy, you suggested we do quarterly updates from staff to see how we're doing on this. Is that?
Colleen is kind of the focal point of our connection with HUD. She has established a great relationship over the past 2.5 years. So she talks to them constantly. So far as what needs to be done in each one of these goals, where it's appropriate within the staff,
Okay,
we'll assign that person.
okay. And then we can, is it okay to ask for quarterly updates? That's where the goals are. I see that they're Q1, 2020 or whatever, so it would just be nice to see our improvements. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Item number 11. Sure. Finish your notes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 4, Article 1 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the building fee schedule.
Move to consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion?
This is just updating the fees, right? This isn't our business license or anything like that. Okay.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Burgettis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
Item 12.
An ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 3, Section 7-41 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the license fee schedule for food service establishments and retail food stores.
Move to consider, suspend the rules, and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis. Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Burgettis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
Item 13.
A special ordinance for the removal of traffic control signals at the intersection of 20th Street and 7th Avenue and replaced with two-way stop signs for north and southbound approaches at the intersection.
Move to consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have something to say. So, I've been traveling up and down the road, kind of paying attention, and there are a fair amount of pedestrians that try to cross there. And my concern is you take that stoplight out, there is no stoplight then from 24th to 17th. And I'm sorry, but motorists pick up speed. Nobody goes the speed limit there because they're coming off of the Augustana, 7th Avenue at 20 miles an hour. So as soon as they break free from that and hit that traffic stop down by Legends, they start picking up speed. And my concern is for the pedestrians that are walking. I just don't know how they're gonna cross the street with the traffic there.
My thoughts were, there's not a lot of traffic going there. I didn't think that there was a lot of traffic in that area. Am I wrong about that?
Well, we don't technically know about the pedestrian traffic
Well, I'm
because we
talking
don't
about
study
I'm just
that.
talking about the vehicle.
Right.
The vehicles. I think the traffic study showed that there's not a lot of traffic going.
Approximately 1,000 cars going east to west.
Yeah, so.
Every
so-
day?
so
My
it-
concern, Mr. Mayor, is the fact that north-south traffic there, I've had several people come up to me and say, hey, that was a bad call. It's something that we might want to reconsider. Taking that light out, I think would be unnecessary expense at this time. If you want to make it a four-way stop, that would at least give the pedestrians a chance to cross back and forth there and give us more time to look at that to see if that's really the prudent thing to do.
Yes, James?
I've had one comment wanting to make it a four-way stop instead of a two-way stop. I've had one comment wanting to leave it as it is now and not remove the traffic lights. And for clarity, this ordinance is to remove the traffic light regulating the north-southbound traffic, replacing it with stop signs. But is there any effect on the east-west traffic light? Or does that light stay there?
What would be removed? You can't have a traffic light and a stop sign at the same
So
intersection.
all the traffic lights would be removed, and the east-westbound traffic on 7th Avenue would have the right-of-way all the time.
That's correct.
That's the
Okay.
idea.
I just want to be clear.
Is there any other discussion? I'm concerned about pedestrian too a little bit.
I just want to ask Alderman Poulos, would you repeat what you said about making it did you say something about making it a four-way stop?
Making it a four-way stop would give the pedestrians the opportunity, because the traffic would have to come to a stop there. It would also control the speed that Alderwoman Swanson was concerned about, because, again, traffic would have to stop there. We've had similar situations up in my ward with, the avenues, and they've put the speed sign up there and a counting sign up there. So, I mean, I'm really happy with what the police department has done, and when I've requested, some information on it. But I'm concerned that removing that traffic light at this point would be an unnecessary expense. Even if you leave it there as it is, it's still going to do the same thing by making it a four-way stop.
And just a housekeeping issue, not a policy issue, but this would be a motion to suspend the rules and pass the ordinance, which requires a supermajority because it's not been read before. So that would require 5 yes votes. Another option, if the council wanted to reconsider it, would be a motion to continue to a date certain. Just want to put that out there so that.
Or would it be that you vote this down and bring back the option for stop signs, if that's what?
You could do that as well.
Or could we?
Well, the stop signs would still involve all the removal of the lights themselves, so the expense would be the same as just going to a two-way stop. I mean, you're still going to have the same expense.
We remove the lights ourselves, correct?
I don't, no, we don't.
No? Okay.
No, but removing those lights, again, you're going to incur an expense there, and if you're going to put stop signs there, why not just leave the traffic lights there and let those lights do what they're
I
intended
guess
to do?
because the council voted last time to bring the ordinance forward, so now you need to decide if you don't want that ordinance to continue.
Can I answer the question about leaving the lights there instead of putting stop signs in? From feedback that I've gotten from the person who wanted to make it a four-way stop, is they claim that they sit there for a long period of time with no traffic coming from the other direction and just wasting time in gasoline idling, or if they're on a bicycle, waiting for the light to change. So I'd be more in favor of making it a four-way stop, so the traffic can stop and move on, rather than waiting there, than having the traffic lights.
But perhaps at this point, it would be more prudent just to vote this down and rethink the whole idea with some more input, and at least rethink it, not push it too fast.
I'm okay
I
with that.
appreciate the work that's gone into this.
I agree with that.
But I think we owe it to our constituents to listen to what they have to say and, try to come up with a win-win solution.
I'm fine with that.
Well,
Go ahead.
we already passed a resolution, right, last time, or a motion of some effect at the last city council meeting.
To bring back an ordinance, that's what we passed. So
Right.
it is a motion activated, so
if a car comes up, the light is gonna change if there's no opposing traffic. I've been through there a number of times there recently. It changes pretty quick. And I guess if they're waiting and there's no traffic coming on Seventh Avenue, then the worry of pedestrians not being able to cross wouldn't be accurate, because if there isn't any traffic,
If I recall our conversation from the last city council meeting, it was that we were going to go ahead and go with the two-way stop sign, and if it was found to be an issue, then we could consider installing the other north-south stop sign. Or I said things like, create a pedestrian light in front of the old Lincoln School, et cetera. I mean, I cross Seventh Avenue walking here every Monday from my house on 22nd Street, and I never have a problem crossing Seventh Avenue walking. Not to say that it's never not a problem, but that's just traffic, right? So I'm fine with removing the stoplights and installing the two-way for north and south.
And I would like to reiterate, last meeting I voted no on the safety issue for the pedestrians.
And I guess I have a question on process. Is the purpose of having a reading and then voting the next council meeting so we have time to discuss, and maybe we might change our minds? We're not tied to the last council's vote, correct?
Not tied.
Okay, thank you.
And what I would just say that we are having staff do work to say that this is the direction we're gonna go in, and then we change our mind. You're right, we're not tied to it, but we should consider that next time.
Absolutely.
And Dylan brought up something about counting the pedestrians, and Mike said it was a way that we can count the pedestrians and see how this went, and then we said we'll move forward.
Sure.
But I'm with whatever my colleagues decide on.
yeah, if we're gonna, if we wanna count the pedestrians, I would do that before we remove the signal.
I moved to table.
And that's all I'm asking.
Till the 24th.
That isn't a,
Hold on, we
that's
got-
not enough time if we're gonna.
What date would you like?
We also can't table it unless I rescind my motion, right?
So they can do a motion to.
Oh, then we
table
vote
it.
to table. Yeah,
Right,
okay,
correct.
my
That-
bad.
That takes precedent, and then you have a vote on that. That's a non-debatable motion, and then depending on how that goes, depends
Yep.
on how your motion
Yeah,
goes.
I'll move to table, but I want to adjust the date to whatever date Randy thinks is appropriate.
To do a traffic study for the intersection with pedestrians this time?
Right.
Does that cost us every time we do a pedestrian, or a traffic study for an intersection?
Oh, no.
We're talking about cost savings, people.
Well, the outcome depends on the information that we apparently need.
Well, I guess I would ask at this time, we've got a request from one citizen to remove the stop sign, correct? Or to remove the stoplights? That was a request from one citizen?
I think so, that's what started this.
I mean, I guess if there's one citizen in the city that wants it removed and there's some question about it, we should just not proceed. That would be my staff's recommendation at this point.
Not proceeding?
Yeah,
Leave it as.
staff would recommend right now that you vote against this, and if we're really doing this for one citizen,
Let's vote.
Well, then, I mean, the traffic engineering committee supported this, correct, or did they?
Yeah, so we did a study
Yeah.
and determined how it would flow the best. And that was the recommendation, that if the stop signs were removed, or the traffic signals were removed, that it would operate optimal with those east-west traffic with the stop signs removed, or traffic signals removed.
And how
Committee assessed it and said that that would be the most optimal traffic pattern or whatever.
Correct.
And how often does council outrule traffic studies?
Regular.
Frequently.
Thank you.
Stop signs.
We got plenty of them. All right,
I didn't hear a second to my.
I'll second that.
Okay,
the second to what?
table.
Table it. You
Table.
seconded the
Until
table?
when?
You gotta have a date.
And I did give a date, but Randy said that wasn't enough
what,
time.
I guess, what do you want? I don't want, I'm just trying to figure out what you want. So there's one person that wants
I'd
this
like us to
changed into
take the
stop
vote,
signs,
please.
so I guess I don't know what you're asking, staff. You want to table it for what reason,
I think it, because the council is unsure as a group. There's some that want to do one thing, there's some that want to do another thing, there's some that want to do a third thing. So I think we need more time. Whether you do a study or not, I think we need more time to chew on this a little bit.
Well, I think my concern is, we're gonna spend $5,000 on a study for what one resident has requested, or we're gonna spend a couple $1,000s to take the light out, we don't have money to do either one of them, so
And
I
I'm
don't
not,
understand why we can't just leave it alone.
and I'm not confused on my decision. I would like to vote.
Would you repeat that, Dave?
I'm not confused on the decision before us. I'm very clear on how I'd like to vote tonight. So tabling it is fine, but my decision probably won't change.
Let's
Is-
let's
is-
just vote.
Let's just vote on the, instead of tabling it, we okay voting?
Well, there's a motion and a
There's a
second.
motion to
Motion and a
approve, there's a
second.
motion to approve it and a
Vote
second to
the
approve.
motion to table down.
Right,
Oh,
you're
there's a
gonna have
mo-
to, you're gonna have to
okay,
address the
second?
tabling motion
Okay, I'm
first,
sorry. I
and
didn't
then-
realize there was a second.
Yes.
I missed that. I apologize.
Do you want to pick a date to bring it back for your table motion? Or to a date uncertain? Thanks.
Say a date certain.
I'd say a date uncertain.
Okay, so there's a motion to table it indefinitely until we actively bring it back. And there's a second.
And you can vote it up or vote it down.
Correct.
Yep. All right.
Now, one technicality, I'm sorry. When I made the motion to table, first I said the 24th, and Randy said we needed more time. At some point, Mark seconded it. I don't remember when it was, but
We needed the second to discuss it.
yeah.
All right.
So are you leaving your second?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay. So then we
Keep
have
up
no
with you guys.
motion.
we don't have, yeah, we would
To
not have a
table.
motion to table.
All right.
All right.
Now we are back to the original.
I would like to withdraw my motion to consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance, and I would like to replace it with a motion to consider the ordinance. Getting rid of the requirement for a supermajority.
Second.
Okay.
All right, everybody understand what's on the table?
Could you repeat it, please?
All right, so if,
I just want, for clarification, what are we voting on?
so this is, because we're not suspending the rules and passing the ordinance, now this will require a second reading, the next council meeting,
Correct.
to remove all the stoplights and install two-way stop signs north and south. So if we pass this motion tonight, it still doesn't take into effect because it has to have a second reading at the next council meeting.
And with the difference being, because you're not suspending the rules, it would require a majority vote rather than a supermajority vote. So instead of 5, if you have all 7 council members, it would take 4 at the next reading.
But it is indicating in favor of taking the lights out.
And two-way stop sign north,
And
south.
two-way stop signs going in. That's what you'd be voting on for the
God,
first time.
The traffic ordinance, or the traffic motions are always the most complicated.
They are. All right, so is that all right? Okay. Roll call, please. Oh, that page.
Alderwoman Swanson,
No.
Parker,
Aye.
Pulis,
No.
Geenan,
No.
Clark,
Aye.
Hurt,
No.
Spaghettis.
Yes.
There, it's done.
3 ayes, 4 nays, motion did not pass.
All right. Now let's see if I can remember where the heck we are.
Number 14.
Yeah, number 14, thank you, Judith.
Claims. A, B, and C in the first group. A, report from the Human Resources Department regarding payment in the amount of $16,205.46 to David Morrison of Rock Island, Illinois, for legal services rendered from February 6, 2019 through May 31st, 2019. B, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment number 1 in the amount of $45,135 to Sterling Commercial Roofing of Sterling, Illinois, for the raw water pumping facility roof replacement project for services provided from January 5th, 2019 through April 30th, 2019. And C, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $22,725 to Xylem Dewatering Solutions Incorporated of Chicago, Illinois, for the rental of pumps during the flood for services provided from April 10th through May 7th, 2019.
Move to accept the reports and authorize payment as recommended for claims items A through C.
Second.
Moved to second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker. Pulis,
Yes.
Geenan,
Yes.
Clark,
Aye.
Hurt,
Yes.
Brigadis.
Yes.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carried. And the second group, D through F. D, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment number 2 and final in the amount of $41,045.97 to Langman Construction Incorporated of Rock Island, Illinois for the 2018-2019 MFT-funded Parkway Repair Project for services provided from January 5th, 2019 through April 26, 2019. E, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment number 20 in the amount of $1,046,320.93 to Civil Constructors Incorporated of East Moline, Illinois for the Water Filtration Facility Project for services provided from April 26, 2019 through May 23, 2019. And F, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $14,815.02 to Valley Construction Company Incorporated of Rock Island, Illinois for an emergency water main repair on 11th Avenue and 51st Street.
Motion?
Motion to accept the reports and authorize payment as recommended for claims item D through F.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
I need to recuse myself from this vote due to the nature of my employment.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Pulis.
Yes.
Geenan.
Yes.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spaghettis.
Yes.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 15.
Claims for the weeks of May 17th through May 23rd in the amount of $1,634,669.88. May 24th through May 30th in the amount of $285,322.52. And May 31st through June 6th in the amount of $304,225.22. And payroll for the weeks of May 5th, 2019 through May 19th, 2019 in the amount of $1,492,552.70. In the weeks of May 20th, 2019 through June 2nd, 2019 in the amount of $1,516,671.65.
Move to allow the claims and payroll.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spaghettis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 16.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding bids for the 2019 pavement marking program, recommending the bid be awarded to Precision Pavement Marking of Pingree Grove, Illinois, in the amount of $164,450.
Move to award the bid as recommended, authorize city manager to execute the contract documents, and authorize Public Works Department to execute the necessary change orders.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion?
Just a comment. There was some discussion that went on between Alderman Parker and myself about the bicycle paths. And to make it short story, we're requesting to meet with city manager, Public Works Director, and the Parks Department Director so that we can review the plan and suggest possibly some changes. This doesn't change anything about approving this, but I've asked the city manager to set that meeting up soon.
Yeah, did the RFP include bike lanes, pavement, or painting as well, or was it just street? I'm just curious as how the original RFP was written.
It just specifies pavement striping,
Okay.
which includes any striping on the street, and if it's bike lane,
Okay.
lane lines, turn arrows, symbols.
Cool.
So, yes, it would include that.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spaghettis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 17.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding bids for the 12th Street Sanitary between 3rd Avenue and Alley to the North project. Recommending the bid of McClintock Trucking and Excavating Incorporated be rejected and the bid be awarded to Langman Construction Incorporated of Rock Island, Illinois, in the amount of $42,022.18.
Move to reject the bid of McClintock Trucking and Excavating Incorporated, award the bid as recommended, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion?
I also need to recuse myself from this one due to the nature of my employment.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Yes.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 18.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2019 budget, increasing the Martin Luther King Jr. Activity Fund 901 by $27,471.
Move to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 19.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2019 budget, increasing the CED Loans Fund 583 expenditures by $105,000 in order to comply with the executed agreements.
Move to approve the budget adjustments as recommended.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 20.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2019 budget, increasing the Water Fund 501 expenditures by $115,000 in order to complete the necessary repairs to the super pulsator.
Move to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 21.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2019 budget, increasing the North 11th Street TIF Fund 203 expenditures by $50,000 in order to complete the sanitary sewer extension project.
Move to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 22.
Report from the Traffic Engineering Committee regarding a request from Jeff Whitaker, principal of Rock Island High School, for the removal of the 2-hour parking zone on 23rd Avenue between 14th Street and 15th Street.
Move to approve the request as made and refer to the city attorney for an ordinance.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion?
I will be abstaining from this one because I work at Rock Island High School.
You gonna park there?
Good question.
I'll make a comment or two. This is in the third ward. The young teacher who was here earlier, I say young is a relative term, younger than I am, I assume. Anyway, she was making the point about the difficulty in receiving tickets because of being parked on the street because the parking lot there is over full. And the neighborhood residents were contacted. They were about divided 50-50. I think it was 6 to 7, and then I got another email from somebody. There's street signs that limit the parking to 2 hours from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And the rest of the time it's unregulated. Anybody can park there. So the effect of this would be we're taking about, I think, 10 to 14 spaces, depending on how many, where you start and where you stop, and letting those be open parking or unregulated parking. And I think it's probably a good thing for the neighborhood in general. It does not affect the permit parking on the residential streets, only those 14 spaces on the side of the street that the school has. I'll be supporting it.
So the principal has come to us for the removal of it, and it seems to be because there's an overcrowding of parking. Has the principal gone to the school board and asked for more parking first, rather than coming to us and let the school district at the high school add onto their parking lot if it's just 10 spots?
I don't know the answer to that. The principal's communication, verbatim, I don't think was in the report. Mike, you said, shaking your head no.
I'm not sure they got the property at this point, I don't know. Do they?
Green space, why is that only if the school doesn't have?
No, he has not said anything to us about any additional parking.
I'd like to see what the school board says before I vote on this. About how they'd like to resolve the issue for their teachers that have a problem finding parking for school.
That may be
Is
more
that
of a
the,
long-term solution. I think short-term, without spending any money for expanding parking lots, which I think they probably should do eventually, this will solve it temporarily at least.
I just, my experience on this council has been it's a lot harder to go back once you take something away. And I'm just not ready to make that decision because I don't think we've done our due diligence. But I respectfully disagree.
Any other comment? I mean,
Was there anybody from the school here?
no,
They
no.
spoke
I
in
think
that.
they've been consulted.
Just the lady who
Oh,
spoke
okay.
earlier.
Right, they spoke earlier.
Well, this is a request from the principal. She came to spoke in favor of it, correct?
She came to speak in favor, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We did receive an email today, too, that was in favor of it,
Two.
From another teacher as well.
from teachers.
Anyone against it?
Just the residents immediately adjacent to this area.
How many?
Half of them that responded.
So that's how many?
7.
I think all the ones that were contacted right in that general vicinity, except for one. I mean, you can look on the map and see where the concentration
So
of
the
no
people who
was.
live there are against it, but the teachers are for it?
No,
Right.
half of the residents that live there are okay with it, half of them are not okay with it. They're split 50-50, the
Okay.
people who live right there.
Okay.
All right,
Call question.
yep. Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Parker,
Aye.
Pulis,
Aye.
Geenan,
No.
Hurt,
Yes.
Brigettis,
Yes.
5 ayes, 1 nay, motion carried.
Item 23.
Report from the Traffic Engineering Committee regarding a request for the installation of a handicap parking space at 1515 7th Street.
Move to approve the request is recommended and refer to the city attorney for an ordinance.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Parker,
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Hurt,
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carried.
Item 24.
Report from the mayor regarding appointments to the Labor Day Parade Advisory Committee, the Human Rights Commission, the Rock Island Housing Authority, the Water Pollution Control, it should be board, not commission, and the Property Maintenance Board of Appeals, and reappointments to the Human Rights Commission, the Rock Island Housing Authority, the Liquor Control Commission, the Stormwater Board of Appeals, and the Ethics Commission.
Move to approve the appointments and reappointments is recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Do we want to read them?
I would, except I can't, for some reason, I can't open that attachment. If somebody can.
There you go,
I just
boss.
tried to open it and I can't. Oh, are they on there?
I got it here, too, if you need it.
Got it here. So, we have a number of Labor Day Parade Advisory Committee is Vicki Hess. That's a new appointment. A appointment for the Human Rights Commission is Adora Nyman and Vince Thomas. And an appointment for the Rock Island Housing Authority is Christine Holgren. Dave Emmerich, yeah. Dave Emmerich was also reappointed to the Rock Island Housing Authority. And then a reappointment for the Liquor Control Commission is Liz Sherwin. An appointment to the Water Pollution Control Board is Joel Thompson. An appointment to Property Maintenance Board of Appeals, Jonathan Lohman. And Stormwater Board of Appeals, a reappointment of Jim Hass and Paul Beal. And a reappointment to Ethics Commission is Frank Nowinski. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Can I make a motion to pass agenda item 25, 26, 27, 28 as a consent agenda?
No.
What? No. No.
We just had this in OMA basic training for staff.
Okay.
Each agenda item needs to be read before you vote on it.
What we
Can you
just,
read them? Can you read them all, and then we can just vote on them as one?
can we just read them then and then vote on them together? Is that possible? Okay, thank you.
So,
Go ahead and read them all.
You want to read items 25 through
28,
28?
and then we can vote on them as a consent agenda. That cool?
Cool.
That work? All right.
okay. Item number 25, report from the city clerk regarding a plaza activity event application for the Rock Island Grand Prix to be held on Saturday, August 31st, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Sunday, September 1st, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. A request to close 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenues between 17th and 20th Streets, close 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th Streets north of 5th Avenue and south of 1st Avenue, and close 4th Avenue at 24th Street from Friday, August 30th, 2019, at 5 p.m. to Monday, September 2nd, 2019, at 6 a.m. A request to use a portion of parking lot C from Wednesday, August 28th, 2019 through Monday, September 2nd, 2019 for the storage of equipment, and a request for a waiver of the permit fee. Item number 26, report from the city clerk regarding a plaza activity event application from Kyle Peters of the Daiquiri Factory for a summer concert to be held on September 27th and 28th, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Item number 27, report from the city clerk regarding requests from Natasha LaShure for a street closing of 3rd Avenue between 21st Street and 22nd Street with sound amplification on Saturday, June 22nd, 2019, from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the after-party for the QC Unity Pride Parade. And item number 28, report from the city clerk regarding a request from Noel Reyes for a street closing of 5th Avenue from the Reyes driveway to 11th Street for a birthday party on Saturday, June 29th, 2019, from noon to 10 p.m.
Move to approve the request as recommended.
Second.
I made the motion. Did anybody second my motion, though?
What motion did you, to approve them all?
You approved, to approve them all as a consent agenda.
Okay, so I made the motion and Ivory seconded it.
Yes, correct.
All right.
That is correct.
Cool.
Okay.
Let me just check something.
Some of the motions are
The
different.
motions are different.
Some have,
Oh, jeez.
because of liquor regulations and
Motion.
complaints of, for
All right,
noise.
disregard. How about I make a motion, well, I guess I'll rescind my motion, and I'll just make a motion. We started with 25. Move to approve into item 25, the event and requests as recommended, including street closings and the waiver of the permit fee.
Second.
Move to second. Okay, any discussion on those? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spargattis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
May I suggest something? May we make a motion to approve events and requests, items 26 through 28 as one? Because
They're different.
Motions are different.
The
Yeah, so
motions are
27
different.
and 28.
26 has alcohol involved,
Right.
Okay.
but you can make a motion to approve agenda item 26. All right, move to approve the event and request as recommended, including the outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol, subject to complying with all plaza and liquor license regulations and subject to being shut down early if complaints are received.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion on 26? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Geenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
Move,
Twenty-seven and 28.
okay, move to approve agenda items 27 and 28 as recommended. Is that the same?
Second.
Yeah,
Second, any discussion?
complicating things by trying to simplify things.
Yeah. No discussion, roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes?
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Keenan.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Hurt.
Yes.
Spaghettis.
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
All right, we have item number 29 as other business. We are back to public comment. There was one person, Karen, I'm not sure if she's still here or not. Didn't want to wait around to talk.
I did get some,
Yeah, just a second, Vince. Yes, we got a few people in the audience that want to speak, so either way.
but you just mentioned Karen, right?
There's some others then, yes, too.
So I have a handful of petitions that she handed me. Can I
Okay.
just make a comment?
Absolutely.
I wasn't aware of this until just before the meeting, but, and I don't know how many are here, I'm guessing there's probably 15 or so. Residents of Friendship Manor petitioning the council, about the 35 or more streetlights that are not working on 11th Street. And, I'm not gonna say any more about than that because they're not here to speak for themselves, but I do have the petitions, and if I should turn them into the city clerk or somebody like that.
Mike, I don't know if you want to give an update or where you at, or is there an update?
So we've been dealing with IDOT and the plan approval process for the 11th Street lighting. This is approximately from 25th Avenue to 4200 block. The issue is that they'll review that plan, send it back with a modification, then we resubmit, and it gets passed off to another person. It comes back to us with another revision, and it's just a process over and over. So and then we found out after the IDOT review, it now has a federal review due to the route it's on. So we've been assured that it will still be able to be bid and work completed this year, but it's still probably a month or two away from being completely revised and approved by both entities.
So why does the federal,
It's a federal route,
okay. That explains that.
67.
Bureaucracy, man.
Exactly.
And so where are we on all the lights in Rock Island? We had a plan, I thought, Randy?
For LEDs and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Well, our lights are part, which are just the main 11th, much of 11th Street, the one-ways in the downtown and 17th Street, I think, mainly. Those are part of the performance contracting. I think, aren't all the Mid-American ones throughout the neighborhoods done?
They are, well, yes. As far as converting them to LED,
Uh-huh.
they should be complete with that, with
Okay.
the Mid-American owned.
All right.
Our city-owned streetlights are part of the performance contract, and that's moving ahead as well.
Waiting patiently on IDOT, like many things.
That's good news.
If only we knew somebody in IDOT that we could call.
Exactly. All right, so we're gonna open it up for anybody else that wants to speak. I got the sign-up sheet here, that's the reason I'm on the move. Yes, please.
I missed signing earlier. Okay.
It just helps us with spelling. Yeah.
His sign about the future topic.
Okay, Vince, what would you like to speak about?
Vince Thomas, 1021st Street, Rock Island. I'd like to speak about the courthouse and urge you to take some serious steps in meeting with the county officials to try and not try, but to get a resolution and in favor of our city. Because I just want to tell you a little bit about a trip that I took to Pittsfield, Illinois. Pittsfield is about 100 miles west of St. Louis. And if you Google Pittsfield, the first thing that comes up is the courthouse. Well,
I was a member of a panel on the Illinois Humanities Council, and the mission of the council is to strengthen the social, political, and economic fabric of Illinois through constructive conversation and community engagement. Well, I was wondering why I had ended up in Pittsfield. Well, there was a little story connected with Pittsfield, and it's about a 4,600 population. One of the things that, if you look at your Wikipedia, says many historic landmarks are in the area, but the most notable is Pike County's Courthouse, which was built in 1894. There is, and so during the conversations we were having with the people in several meetings, was what was the caused Pittsfield to sort of revive. And it was because of a woman who had a coffee shop in St. Louis and decided when she was had her children, she decided that she needed to move into a smaller community. And so she moved into Pittsfield with her children and opened another coffee shop in a building. And her husband turned out to be a developer, a small town developer, and he was fixing buildings, etc. Well, he took an interest in what was happening in Pittsfield, and particularly, you know, with the courthouse was sort of standing there, and around the town square, buildings seemed to be deteriorating. Well, in her conversations at the coffee shop with the townspeople, they would always talk about, you know, we need to be doing something to revive this place. And so they started opening up little stores. And they were able to open those stores because the developer was there to kind of talk to the people.
Vince, I don't want to cut you off too quick here, but you're limited. You
Beg
have
your
about 2
pardon?
more minutes.
My time is,
You're getting close, about another 2 minutes, please.
okay, happens to me often. Which is one reason why I think it's important that the city council should come to a public meeting, a real public meeting that we could have at City Hall or in any other appropriate place where you can get citizens like myself who tend to speak more use up their 3 minutes, and so you could get to hear more people speaking and have an open discussion. Because if you go to the county building, it's the same thing, and the chairman, just like yourself, says, your time is up, and they just shut their ears off, and they don't want to hear anymore.
Vince, can you finish the story? I want to hear the end of the story.
The story is, right, the story is that the town has revived, and it's all because there were some people like this woman who decided to be a sort of motivator, speaking to people who came and getting encouraged and telling them that, you know, there are things that could be done to make a difference. And so we're very fortunate that in our city that we have people like Joe and Lo Milani and Bridget back there, and who are trying to motivate us and motivate you and motivate the county board to make a difference. And I think we can make a difference if we can get together. I think that we need to broaden our vision so we can discuss in more detail instead of being constrained to being just in 3-minute brief discussions. And in fact, it's not a discussion, it's sort of one way. I say my piece and you either have been listening or you just turn it off. So, and that's the end of it. Because even in the county courthouse, and the county board meeting, the chair said, we're not here to answer any of your questions. And that was it. So I think there's something lacking when you say, you know, this, in a democracy, everyone gets heard, everyone can say what they want to say, and you, the decision makers, will listen and come up with a decision. But unfortunately, if it's just one way, we don't know what you're thinking or what your reactions are, and whether we should go back to the drawing board or should we continue trying to convince you that this is a good idea, or should we just give it up? It's not what I think in a democracy we need to be a little more open.
Appreciate it. No, thank you.
Vince?
Go ahead.
Well, sorry
No, go
to cut
ahead.
you off. I just wanted to let you know that, you know, parroting off of your story of Pittsfield, I think it was the day after this council passed our resolution saying that we would entertain an intergovernmental agreement with the county for redeveloping the courthouse. I think maybe now a couple of months ago. But I think it was the day after that, Gorman and Company, which is a developer, a big developer firm, they got offices in Phoenix, Miami, Denver, Chicago, et cetera, they emailed me and said, hey, we're interested in what's going on here in Rock Island, and now, you know, now we are having conversations with this developer, not necessarily about the courthouse, but just, I agree that the courthouse is a good example of something that could revive our downtown, that could be the example of, it's not just empty buildings. Currently, it's not just empty buildings in downtown Rock Island, but it could be more as well. So I just wanted to share that little bit of insight that we already are having the motivators like yourself here, and others are listening, and others are looking and investing, so thank you.
I missed, you reminded me, I missed one point, was one of the things was that President Lincoln had been on the circuit court and had, what, 34 cases in Pittsfield. And the hotel where this woman started her coffee shop, she bought the building and then made it into the Lincoln Hotel. John Hay, who was Lincoln's personal secretary, was from Pittsfield, who eventually became the ambassador to Great Britain at one time. So they tie in all the history, and we've got Lincoln's history here too, and that could be tied into attracting people. I have a John Hay's poems when he was in Pittsfield. So, so there are a lot of things, there's a lot of possibilities. We just have to open up our minds to accept a lot of different ideas. All right.
I think I find this council to be listening, so I think you're correct. I got a question, I know there's another speaker, and I got a question for, have you guys talked to any other city councils, any other cities?
Andalusia.
I do remember.
You know, there are a lot of jurisdictions within the county, and it takes time to do the outreach. And so we're doing the same kind of thing. We did it in Andalusia. I think you followed that story. And we're reaching out to Moline. And so, yes, we're trying to march around the county.
Trying to, but you haven't yet.
We've done the outreach, but it takes time to get on the agenda, you know, for this same reason. And so, yeah, including for tonight, we had hoped actually to be an actual agenda item where that dialogue that you talked about could have taken place.
Right. It can take place a little bit here too also, but the issue is you've been at this city council several times, and you haven't spoken in front of anybody else besides Andalusia at this point at all. You reached out to them, but you haven't been on their agenda or spoke to them.
Well, respectfully, you've drawn a historic district within your city, and this courthouse is in that district.
Well, I understand, but it's
And
also the county, it's a county courthouse, and those other cities sit in the county and have just as much say-so over it as we do.
While the city of Moline would not reap the benefits of turning it into a retail
It may not, but I'm just
establishment.
saying, but it's a county, and if you talk about peer pressure,
Right.
so to speak, and public pressure,
It's no longer the county courthouse. Now it is just an empty building that could be turned into a building that generates property and sales tax for the city of Rock Island.
It is still a county building, though.
Correct.
county owns it.
Correct. But
So-
I don't understand how the city of Moline would have economic benefit in,
It's
other
not, it's
than,
not all just economics, it's history, not just economics.
well,
And so they have an interest in their history in their county.
I believe that the resolution that we passed cited pretty much only the tax and economic development benefits of developing the courthouse, and that is the reason that this city council, in addition to some of the reasons that Joe listed, but that's why we have a seat at this table.
I think that if what you're asking is for appreciation, that you've heard the issue now a couple times, let me give it to you, because we are appreciative.
Yeah.
And you have been
No,
more receptive.
I'm not looking for that, I just want to make sure that the county, make sure it's a county issue, not just a city issue. This issue is not just the city of Rock Island's issue.
Right,
And
so-
I'm not sounding like I want to sound against it or anything else, because I think it's a beautiful building, believe me, and I believe in history. And that's why I think that for the historical part of it, the county should be engaged, the county-wide people should be engaged, not just City of Rock Island citizens.
If I could just add something about the city of Moline. The Moline Preservation Society has been very active in supporting that.
They're a plaintiff in the lawsuit.
So, all right, you answered the question, and you're more than welcome anytime at this time. Yeah, we're not trying to shut anybody down. We're really not. It's an open public deal. Yes. Go ahead.
Speak now?
Yes, please. And if you'd sign that sheet, please. Yep, oh, Tom, you did sign on that sheet,
Tom?
didn't you, Tom? I apologize, Tom.
Yeah, you talk.
Oh, that's right, you
He
did.
already spoke.
Just staying to listen. Tall people have been up here. Okay, so my name is Bridget Ehrman, and you're right, this is the second time I've come to speak on this here. As far as coming to the county, I mean, I've been to probably 80 meetings. So, I mean, we've definitely tried to get the county involved before they made their vote. So, yeah, I definitely agree, but, we're not getting anywhere with them. So, we want to just share it with other people who maybe don't know what's going on. Because there, as Joe highlighted in his presentation, there's a lot of misinformation. Even on the board, they don't really know kind of what's going on. And so he was trying to, clear up some of those misinformations that have been out there. I just wanted to talk a little bit about why I got involved with this. Because, well, I went to Augustana. I graduated in 2007, so I've lived in Rock Island since 2003. I came here from the Chicago suburbs, and when I did my college visits and I saw Old Main, I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. And, attending Augustana for 4 years, everybody thought that. All the students and everything were very, it was something that everybody appreciates, because people do appreciate history. I live in the Broadway Historic District, and I bought a house there when I graduated from Augustana because I didn't want to go back to the suburbs. I really liked this community. And I was really, when I bought my house here at 22 and I started making friends in this community, I would get a lot of comments like, well, why would you buy a house in Rock Island? Rock Island of all the 4 cities, and I didn't agree with that at all. And so I wanted to kind of get more involved and help Rock Island grow. And so I joined, the Rock Island the Broadway Historic District, and now I'm the president. And you voted our organization Citizen of the Year last year, which I appreciate, because I think that we really do a lot. We help the community because we care. We want Rock Island to flourish and thrive, and there's a lot of really involved people in the city that that love Rock Island and want to see it thrive. And as somebody mentioned before, if this if this courthouse is demolished, despite the hundreds and hundreds of people that support it, and the hundreds, actually thousands of hours. I mean, if you look at what Joe put together and how many people have spoke at the county board meetings, how many people have spoke here, I don't think I've, seen reading through the county board minutes for the last 5 years, there's never been this much support for any issue. So I think this is a really important issue, and saving taxpayer dollars, of course, is important, but it's also, a moral issue in that when, you've had this many people come forward and you've had, an opportunity to reduce the tax burden on an already very tax burden heavy community, I think that that's something that, morally, I don't think that they should be spending any more of our tax dollars, especially when we haven't gotten a chance to speak on it. There's been no referendum, there's been really nothing, and the law does, kind of, it specifies that you should have those things, and I think there's been some skirting of the law, which is why there are lawsuits, and but when I say those kinds of things, I get threatened with litigation and libel for saying, for looking up the law and saying, I don't think that this is, this is legal. And so I just, there's a lot of bullying that's going on. There's a lot of things that I think kind of, I don't know, when people come and they speak, when hundreds of people come and spend hundreds of hours, which has happened, I don't know how many other issues people spend that much time on. In Rock Island, we love Rock Island, we want to see it thrive, and I think you all have done a really nice job. The council is switching over slowly, and we've got some really great new people that are doing great things for Rock Island. I don't think we're going to be the underdog for too long. I think we're getting up there, and people, I think there's a lot of good things happening in Rock Island, and I want this to be one of them. We've got some great new city council members. We've got a woman on the city council. That's great. I think that's, we need diverse opinions from everybody, and I really think that there's been a lot of things that, you are elected to represent us, and I think you all have been doing a nice job listening to you today, especially with the parking for the teachers. I'm an educator, and I'm a special education provider. I'm a speech therapist, and I travel to multiple schools, and parking is difficult, and teachers don't make enough money to be paying parking tickets, I can tell you that. So I don't know, I think you all listened to your constituent. She came in, and she gave you, a really valid thing, and these kinds of issues are important, and I think you do a nice job of talking to us, and so I do think that it's under your jurisdiction to get involved, because this is our town, and I think there's other people who are involved in the other county, but when I talk to people about it, they say, well, I don't live in Rock Island, so they don't really care as much as Rock Islanders do. So I agree that we're trying to get other people involved, like the labor unions, for example. I've got friends on the painters union, and they, of course, would love somebody to buy it and get, painting jobs and plumbing jobs and HVAC and all that stuff, whereas tearing it down only gives Valley Construction a deal, and that's it. So I think that when we look at what's appropriate with taxpayer dollars and what we should care about as Rock Islanders, I hope that we can try to take a bigger role. And you're not the only ones that we're speaking to. It's just, since it is in Rock Island, we do want to speak to you. And I appreciate you listening, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, is that all? Does the council have anything they would like to bring forward? If not, I got a couple items. Once I had the opportunity, Randy and I did, to Kyle Peters with that Actory Factory, and he was in charge of Gumbo Yaya this last weekend, and he reported a great success. He said he had a larger crowd than there was last year, quite a bit larger. He talked to a number of the other establishments downtown and had large crowds inside once they shut the event down around 12:15 or so. That the other places were full. So a lot of all the restaurants were busy, and so it served its purpose of bringing 3,500, 4,000 people down here, and then and helped the business. They didn't stay just outside. They went in and out of the establishment. So it was a great success. Felt really a lot of it was due to some of the different things they did, the dueling pianos and the bags games and the
et cetera, that they offered. They offered family-orientated type of things early on. They had a lot of young kids down here, from 5 to 10-ish or so, I think he talked about. Then the crowd started turning over to the older adults. So it was a great success. He had some good revenue, and so. Randy,
I would like to say something. I received a phone call from Probation Department from Rock Island County. They did send some people down, and they were working off community service hours, and they did do a plaza cleanup on Saturday following the first night of the event. So they gave me a little report back to that, and they plan on doing that again this coming up Saturday
Great.
as well.
I know you championed that project, not just there, but other places too, and that's great. So it was a good success. He's excited to do it. It was long hours, but he's excited to look forward to the next event and see some great success and
Good.
put some new energy into the festivals.
Randy,
I have a question. Included in our CIP for this year is $25,000 or so for the Arts and Entertainment District that no longer exists, that used to pay for these festivals that we have no part of anymore. Can we use that $25,000 to, like, try to identify a different event to sponsor?
Well, it's already been paid, because that was absorbed by Dari, so of the money we give them, 7,000 went to, this event, and 7,000 is gonna go to,
You make
You
my
Make My
weekend?
Weekend. Mhm.
Okay, so
So money is still going, they are
28,000.
still supporting those
We
festivals.
paid $28,000 to Dari / the district,
The
and
district doesn't
14,000
exist.
of that, they'd committed to the two events. And that's to fulfill a contract that we had with Dari.
our contract with Dari requires us to,
Paid $28,000.
well, that was a contract with the district.
Yeah, they were absorbed by Dari, though, so it's still going into the district. They've hired same company that cleans up Moline to
Yeah.
do cleaning down there, and
Okay, so.
they promoted it through those, the quarterly newsletter.
So now we have both our $130,000 or whatever it is that we give to Dari, and now we're giving $28,000 to Dari as
Well,
well.
we always gave that, it was under the same umbrella.
Correct.
And so that 28 is going to district and downtown events as it should be. And this year, those two contracts are up, so we'll have a chance to renegotiate those at the council's direction this year.
I didn't see anything on the publications of Gumbo Yaya that the city of Rock Island was a sponsor either.
Well, we didn't sponsor again because
Oh,
we did not.
we just paid Dari to sponsor it.
Well, contractually, we were obligated to pay Dari, and Dari, as they have done every year, then pays this event.
This year, they chose to third-party it out to
Right.
Kyle
They
versus they ran
con-
it internally
Yeah,
before.
they unloaded all of their events
Right.
on private entities.
They did, and so far, it's worked out fantastically.
Yeah, no, I don't have any objection. If the city of Rock Island is gonna pay for the event, the city of Rock Island should get some recognition for paying for the event.
This is the last year of the contract, we renegotiate that at the council's guidance.
I look forward to that conversation.
The other, I guess, bring up, is I know I mentioned to several of you as I've talked, Mayor Pro Tem. It's the council's responsibility to bring a name forward to vote on for Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to have that on the agenda the 24th of this month, 2 weeks from now. So if you guys can get together, and gals, apologize, get together.
I wouldn't get together to.
No. Excuse me, thank you. I apologize.
Two at a time.
Two at a time.
Two at a time, talk on the phone individually, whatever. Bring a name forward.
Does it-
I'd appreciate that.
Are we required to annually
No,
state that?
no, basically, you don't have to have one at all. You can, once again, if I was to be absent next week, and there wasn't one, you can then appoint one at that time, or just for that meeting.
Yeah, just.
And
the
so you don't
filling.
have to have one annually, you don't have to have it at all.
Okay.
You could do it, whatever we wish to do at this point. History's had it. It's been an annual deal.
Oh, you know my opinion on
I agree.
doing things because of tradition.
So, But so that at this point, unless there's and not that we could take any action here, but if there's a yearning to change that, we can do that. But at this point, I am hoping and planning on having it on the agenda the 24th unless something comes up in different.
Okay.
Okay? The other would be on talking about expenditures.
But the reporter left. What's that? I said, but the reporter left.
Control whether she leaves or not.
She should have stuck around.
She should. I can't control that, and I wasn't on the agenda, so I couldn't bring it up until now, or anybody else. And so, I did send out an email, and, yes, Dave, you were gonna.
Yeah, and on those conversations, like we say, to comply with the Open Meetings Act, we ought to try to make sure that we do not have more than the appropriate number of people that can be involved in those communications. That's just a kind of on any of these issues.
Yes, correct. I apologize for making that statement wrong.
Don't worry, I reminded you.
Yes, you did. But I would like to, once again, I guess I'm looking forward to, I would like to see us in the next council meeting, the 24th, do a resolution, the proper, whether it's a resolution, whether it's an ordinance, policy. I would recommend a resolution, so it's a little more fluid than can be a little more fluid than an ordinance. Of the recommended policy that the staff worked on, some of the council members had input on a number of weeks ago. That spelled out what the proper things are to spend money on and what they're not, and for the most part, it spelled out what is proper. Basically, if it's not in there, it would be not proper, I guess would be the best way to put it.
I don't recall, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't get that correspondence when we were given input on what should go in there.
I believe it was only the new alder people that were contacted about it.
Okay, so I never got that opportunity.
No one was contacted. People contacted me with, and that's why I sent out the draft, and nobody responded
Yeah.
to the draft, really.
So when we're doing something like this, Mayor, I respectfully would ask that we have a study session so that we can go through the points, have a discussion, give staff a time to bring information to the council, because that's what we do when we usually are coming up with something like this that's going to impact the whole council. And I think it would just be fair. And I know we don't like to do things just because of tradition, but some things with tradition have been done for a reason, and that is so that we all have input, we all have notice that this is going to be discussed at a certain time, and we're all shown the respect as aldermen to come and voice our opinions. No disrespect to anybody here, but I feel that everyone has the right to have their input in this process.
Yeah, and I guess I'm looking for some of that input tonight to help with that draft. If there's, once again, is there anybody have a chance to read that? Is there any input based on what they read?
I do. I have some comments on it.
Yes.
I guess I was uncomfortable in the May meeting that we were approving expenses on a purchase card for March. Because once the expenses are put on a purchase card, those purchase card expenses are paid, and there's not a chance for anyone to review, and if we were to disallow a charge, it's already been paid. I guess my question is, I work in the business field, and in all businesses in Rock Island and across the Quad Cities and any place I've ever worked, you make a purchase, you take your receipt, you attach it, a detailed receipt, to a completely and fully filled out reimbursement form. You submit that, those reimbursements are then reviewed and approved, and at that point, you are reimbursed for the charge. By doing so, it emphasizes mindful purchasing, mindful spending, and I guess the problem that I have is if things are put on a purchase card and we're approving them 2 months later, there's really no going back at that point. It's already been paid.
Correct, and that's where I think one of the recommendations was in the draft was to, I won't say eliminate the purchase cards, but the purchase cards were only used for when you're traveling, because it's necessary, I guess, sometimes for those type of expenses. Other than that, you put it on your own personal, and you submit for reimbursement, and that way, once again, it hasn't been spent
Right.
ahead of time, and if there is something that is wrong, can be denied or reviewed.
Yeah, and if you don't fill out a form completely or
Then you
refuse
don't
to
get
fill out a
reimbursed.
form, then you don't get reimbursed.
And what does that form look like?
There's a form in Judith's office that fill
Right.
out.
And I would like to see different options for forms. There's not one form in the world that everyone uses, and that's the only form that we can use. I would like to see different options for forms. I don't want to just see one
That's fine,
option.
we can definitely review the form, there's no problem with that.
So-
But it helps work with not
What is your objection to a study session? What is the objection to us doing this like we've always done it? Meaning taking the time, doing it right. There's no rush. It was a news story. Yes, it was a news story. And another attempt, some people behave badly, but another attempt, in my opinion, to make Rock Island look bad at any chance they get. But what I'm going to say is, we need to make sure that we don't just react to the news story. Now, I'm not talking about just the Argus. I'm talking about things I've read online where people are just making how terrible Rock Island is, which everyone at this table know that's not true. We have to be held accountable, but we don't just rush into something because of a news story. We behave in a manner that's respectful to everyone at the table and is reasonable.
Well, in all due respect, I agree with you. However, I think this was all well in the works prior to the news story coming
Exactly.
out. I mean, that just kind of brought it out. I mean, obviously, I think everyone had an indication a while back that this may have been coming, but I don't think it was reactionary to a news story. I think it was reactionary to policies things that were going on that people had concerns on well ahead of the news story, is what I'm saying.
So why didn't we do it last week, or last session? Why did we wait till after the news story? to
We were
do it?
waiting for feedback on the draft that Randy sent out.
Oh, is
And
that the reasoning?
I think too, I can speak for myself, this is an issue I ran on, was transparency and accountability.
That's fair.
And so this is only our second full meeting. So I think it would have been premature for the new council members to bring it up earlier. And I guess the concern that I have is you look at those purchase card values of $4,000 per alderman, that's $28,000. And I mean, in all honesty, we don't have money. And how many potholes can that $28,000 fill?
See, this is my point exactly, what Alderwoman Swanson is bringing up. These things need to be discussed. It's not discussed on a Monday night. All these things have to be brought up and discussed at a study session. And then if we're gonna change something like that, that's fine. It wasn't brought in on a Monday night. It was done at a study session. And that's when we came up with those different rules
We're gonna have the
for-
same discussion, I think, whether it's a study session or here.
What is the city of Davenport's policy? What's the city of Moline's policy?
What is the city of East Moline's policy?
City of Moline, it has, the council member, there's no purchase cards.
Okay.
They have no line item budget for individual council members. For an example, they say they have in the budget 2 people to go to IML, 2 people to go to Washington DC, or whatever conference is, they have 2 people.
Okay.
And it's not specifically for individuals, and so they decide at the time who's gonna go this year, or who's gonna go next year, or whatever it is, to those. And any expenses they put up that you can do ahead of time that you can pay for, whether it be plane or hotel, they put on the city's tab. And after that, the council person spends their own money and gets reimbursed. And it's the same way in all the cities, in the Quad Cities.
Oh, it's the
And-
same
and
way
so-
in East Moline also?
Yes, that's correct. And so so that's what they've done, is that put the
Yeah, I
onus
mean,
on the council members.
I think it is perhaps inconsiderate. Not every single alderperson has a credit card. Not every single alderperson budgets to, afford a trip to DC and put it on their own personal account. So if you require it to be, you have to spend your own money and then be reimbursed, that's telling only the aldermen that have credit can go.
We're sorry, no, travel would be on the city's credit card.
Sure,
And so
okay.
that would be, travel would be,
And what
the
about
plane-
eating and all that stuff when you're out there? You're saying that only aldermen that have credit or have a bank account that can afford going out to eat
You
3
can do
days a week.
advances, you could, once again, they allow it to take
Advances
advance.
with the city?
You could do it in advance with the
funds.
city and then pay that, you know, and once again, keep the receipts.
Much like the departments do when they send an individual to training, they'll get a check to go to training, and then when they come back, they have to turn in receipts, plus itemized lists of what was spent and where it was spent, and
What's the
much
difference?
the same as what was, if you'll let me continue, much the same as what was included in the original document. It almost mirrors the expense process for the employees. So we're not putting ourselves above or below them. We're just saying, hey, this is a good plan. It's being followed by the employees through the different departments. There's accountability. When you come back, you turn in your receipts. And guess what? If you spend it on something that isn't authorized, then there are questions that have to be answered, and you're held accountable.
How's that any different from
I
using
do
the P
agree with
card?
Dylan on the, I think, me personally, I would rather the city keep my card, and if I'm traveling, then I'd pick up the card for meals and
That's right.
expenses, right?
fine.
I mean, I don't agree that nobody should have to go put their meals out and then go through that whole process. I mean, you're talking
Right.
typically a small amount of money.
Right.
We're not talking about the
And-
travel part.
That's
the
right. And the new
hotel, right?
revised
Correct.
talks about the travel. You can
Yes.
use the one in your name, you
Right.
can use the city P card, we call them P cards, obviously. You could, at this point, you can do that for travel. The city is not asking for that. It's just anything here, if you want to call it local,
Right.
you know, type deal that you spend your own money on and get reimbursed. Unless it's a pre-approved, I guess you could, you know, get your P card if it's something that's pre-approved and with it, that's fine, you know, that could potentially work. But the difference between a P card, real quick, and doing your other is what Alderman Swanson talked about, is it's money already out the door. And if it's not approved type deal, you were out of town and purchased alcohol, and you shouldn't have, well, it's money the city's already spent, and it's hard to go back
Which is
and
gonna
get
lead
that.
to my next question.
That's the problem with P cards versus your own money and getting reimbursed. But
So my follow-up comment to that, so if we have an issue come up on a P card for approval that we routinely do, and we decide not to approve something on that P card, what is the recourse that the city has?
we could talk about it, because you can't legally do it out of the paycheck without their permission.
So,
Well, so if someone accidentally charges something,
I'm not talking about
I know, but if
accidentally.
our process is if someone accidentally charges something, and people do, then they have to pay that amount back. So I guess it would be, Dave, if that's already charged, what would we do at that point?
One of the things that you could have a problem with as an elected official, and this has come up in the past, a long time ago, I think when Ted was still city attorney, but you can't be a sitting official and owe money to the municipality, whether it be $1 for a bag of peanuts, or whether it be $20 for a tank of gas, or whatever the case may be. So I guess it would be self-enforcement, but that is one of the rules, that in order to be elected official, that you can't owe money to the municipality. Now, I suppose, you know, who's going to determine do you owe the money or not? That becomes the question, right?
And what if it's a non-sitting council member?
Then that's, if they're not an elected official, then that becomes a problem.
Is it something that the city could take that person to small claims if it was, say, under $1,000?
Sure. Sure.
And would it be cost effective to do something like that?
Well, if it's $100, the problem is that if we're litigating, of course, we're independent contractors, we're not city employees, so we charge an hourly rate. And so you do have to have that conversation and say, okay, is it worth Dave or Hector going to litigate this, or Jeff going to litigate this for $138 an hour? Because it's a $50 bill. And you can't, unless a statute allows you to recover attorney fees, you don't get to recover your attorney fees. So you spend $68, you know, if it takes us a half hour worth of time, spend $68 or $70 to get $50, that's, you know, more. It might be, principally, on principle, it might be a good idea, but financially, it's not.
But Dave,
Real sound.
I mean, the city would send out a letter or something, though, prior to all the litigation.
Oh,
that-
sure.
I mean, you're kind of looking like down the road, but I mean, there's collection companies that
that don't charge nearly as much, or you could,
Well,
I
but
mean,
they're
there's
not
other
licensed to
things.
practice, right, but they're not licensed to practice law in a small claims court. That's the
Yeah, but
problem.
you're taking it to another level. I'm
No,
just
no.
saying, what would be the first steps if
Yeah.
that were to happen, you know?
We send a demand letter and see,
Right.
just very, very similar to what you probably would do in your private practice. And what
Correct.
I do in my private practice is
Yes.
you can say, hey, we're gonna have people call them and bother them and see if they will pay. Sure,
Correct.
absolutely.
Okay.
Just
So,
remember, I
can-
guess,
can
some of
just
the.
make a comment?
Yes.
So, everybody's got questions, everybody's got comments, several people have ideas. I agree with Alderman Clark, this deserves more time to eventually work this out to the end agreement that we're gonna make about our expenses. And I'm suggesting and requesting that we have a study session and have people prepared with whatever they want to say or ask or present at a study session to try to make this more conclusive than we're going to make it here around this table tonight.
I would tend to agree with you on that.
I have ideas that I'd like to suggest, but I don't think this is
Okay.
the time to do it. I think a study session would be better.
I just comments and that, go ahead, Randy.
You know, I would appreciate it if you gave me the suggestions ahead of time so they can be included in a presentation.
Okay.
That way, there's time to research that,
And
otherwise.
I apologize if I didn't respond to one of your emails. That might have gotten by me about that.
Oh, it's fine.
Some of these, there aren't a whole lot of negotiations on some of the things because the IRS requires some of these things, i.e., when you, a fuel type deal, you have to have your mileage, whether it be 10 miles or 50 miles or 100, you got to show the beginning and end the odometer reading, for example.
But, for example, you don't have to do that if you have a car allowance like the city manager or all the department heads.
But we're not employees, and so that legally doesn't work. You have to be an employee of the city for that to work, and part of your contract, and we're not city employees.
We're elected employees.
We're elected, we're not employees.
Yeah, so the council could vote to increase their compensation via a car allowance, and then it would go into effect, if I'm correct, Dave, on the next election?
Yeah, you can't.
gotta go way down the road on
You can't raise your own pay.
That's correct.
You can't raise your own wage.
This is also
It's
something.
not immediate. What I'm saying is, there's lots of room for discussion about things.
Yes.
That it's not appropriate to do here, and we don't have enough time. Whereas if you have a study session, and if we follow Randy's suggestion, that we send our suggestions in ahead of time, so it's maybe more organized, then we can get further with this.
Okay. Seems like this.
So the next available study session is in July, unless you want to cancel something out of this next study session. So a
No.
portion would be, finance has one of their required sessions, so that has to go. The other session coming up is one of our goals, which was the business registration process, and also the Labor Day Parade Committee wanted to give a quick presentation. So
She
Steph,
hasn't decided when she's coming.
oh, well, she did. Stephanie's is mandatory. It seems to me this discussion might take an entire study session.
I think so.
I don't know, but that's the sense I'm getting. So the next available study session would be the first meeting in July.
And I'm gonna go back to real quick, and some of these we have to make a change temporarily, immediately, because we're not in code with IRS. We are violating the IRS regulations on the way that some of the receipts are being filled out and/or the mileage and that sort of thing. That's not a city, that's not a state, that's a federal regulation, and that we need to be in compliance.
And
There's something
changing
we can
our
drop off
policy.
the next study session to at least start this conversation. I think this is kind of a pretty important issue. So is there something that's movable from the next one?
Well, there is, that's up to you, so
Not the business registration
it would
one.
be the business registration. That would be the one that would drop off.
No.
How about if in the meantime, since we are out of compliance with IRS regulations, how about if in the meantime, if you're going to a conference and you feel the need for a purchase card, you take a purchase card with you and it's used for that purpose only, all other expenditures you pay for out of your pocket and you submit receipts for reimbursement until we go ahead and get a formal plan in place.
Well, I did want to bring up that very issue of, all right, so we all received an email from the mayor saying that you were directing city staff to implement this policy. Now,
City
A,
manager.
correct. I mean, I
Directing the
responded.
city manager.
Correct. I responded rather quickly, saying that this was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. You can't make decision via email to all aldermen all at once, especially when it's changing policy, even though I'm not entirely sure if we have an official policy that currently governs our
Or
P
creating
card.
policy.
Creating policy, correct. So I guess I would like some clarification from our legal staff. How is that allowed?
Well, I guess it's a two-part question. One is, certainly even no home rule community or other community has the ability to usurp the Internal Revenue Code.
Correct.
And so anyone who says, we're going to have a policy that you're going to abide by the law, well, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
So
And I'm fine with that.
So in that regard, that's obviously a no-brainer. With regard to the issue of policy, I agree with you. I mean, and I can send you a copy of what I sent to the newspaper in response, which I kind of parsed out some of it that I responded. But anyway, I put together a 2-page note to them about what I found. And really, the law says, on the one hand, the Constitution says public funds shall only be spent for public purpose. And then they say, however, legislators have the ability to kind of determine what is a public purpose.
Right.
And so it can't be, it's not necessarily going to be a 100% benefit. So one of the cases that I cited was, for instance, there was a convention that took place out in San Francisco, and the Supreme Court said, well, pretty clearly, San Francisco is a better place to have a conference than maybe, Council Bluffs, Iowa. So they said, I'm sure that the people that had the meeting out there enjoyed that and got some benefit, but they also went out for a public purpose. So it's a balancing act, and there is no clear-cut rule. So how you can come to a decision about what you're doing, I guess, as a policy has to be voted on. You're right. I mean, it has to be brought forward, or an ordinance has to be brought forward. I'm not aware of any policy or ordinance or resolution at this point that has been adopted. On the other hand, if there are any policies that are not in compliance with federal or state law, you don't have to have somebody tell you that you have to obey the law.
And let me check this, and my understanding is actually, this is not officially a city council, and typically has not been a city council vote. It's not an ordinance. It's a policy, and the city manager has the ability to change and adjust policies without city council approval.
We're talking about, once again, policies, and there's a fine line there, though, because if you're talking about expenditure of public money, that's a function of the legislator. So it wants to get legislature. So it's a real slippery slope.
Yes, the reason that I bring it up is that since this became an issue, I requested to spend $75 from my representation fund to have the City of Rock Island be a sponsor, one of the trophy sponsors for the Rock Island Grand Prix. I've been very involved in trying to work with that organization and reconnect the city with that organization, and they're doing their sponsorship deal, and so I said, yeah, sure, I'll use $75 from my representation fund to have the City of Rock Island be a sponsor of one of the trophies, right? And in response, I was told that, no, we are not going to do that. I'm not going to have, from Randy, we are not going to fulfill your request, which is frankly, there's no policy currently that is saying that, no, we cannot do that. And so regardless, I'm fine with having a conversation about if we want to change the policy, but just on the matter of observing proper procedure, the policy that is in place, whether it be official or not official, is that the aldermen have the authority to assess whether the expenditure is of public good. And I believe that having the City of Rock Island be out in the public, sponsoring events, doing good things, getting our name out, working with community partners is a good use of public funds. And so I do not understand why I have been told, no, we're not going to do that, even though there's no policy that's preventing me from not doing that.
Well, as the discussion we had was there are a number of aldermen who said they didn't want to allow that type of expenditure.
Correct.
And I was a little comfortable knowing that. going against multiple aldermen for something one alderman wanted, and all I want is the alderman to come to some kind of agreement, whether
And-
that's okay or not, and there's plenty of time to donate to the, you know,
Yeah, that was
the
the-
race between now and the race, so.
How many aldermen were opposed to that?
At least 3 told me directly, and I'm led to believe a 4th.
I wasn't even aware of what Dylan's talking about, so I had no option to weigh in on that at all.
This is your option to weigh in on. I mean, this is what we're trying to do, is weigh in
But
on
I
it.
still think we need a study session.
Because the other is, it's
Let me
nonprofit.
just say one more thing, Mike, and then you can go ahead. As far as the mayor having the power to make a temporary, to have the city manager enforce a temporary policy, I'm in agreement with Dylan. I don't think that's the appropriate way to do it. I think having all of the council involved at a study session, and then having a vote is the proper way to do it, or having a special meeting if you need to. But when we're here at the council meeting, for example, and the mayor has appointments to boards and commissions, that has to be approved by the council. So using that as kind of an example or a model, I think any new policy that's gonna be instituted needs to be debated or discussed by the entire council and voted on. End of speech.
And real quick, the discussion that there was Randy and Dylan, was, it's not just the Grand Prix, it's nonprofit organizations.
And I have a
Because
lot to
that-
say about that, but I don't think this is the place to do it.
Okay.
I spent a fair amount of money on not-for-profit causes for the library, and others. But, you know, I'm asking for a study session so we can continue this there.
Okay, sounds like that's what people want to do.
And I'm asking that I not have temporary policies imposed on me without having it go through the proper channels of having it be decided by the legislators.
And I guess I would like to ask then that we don't spend money on our personal passions and pet projects that could be better well spent within the city for a city that actually needs to have some things done.
Understood?
My problem is that at what point does it stop? You have a pet project, I would love, you know, there are organizations within the city that I think are very well deserving, and I agree with you that the Grand Prix is a good promotion for Rock Island. But then again, so are the Backwater Gamblers. And that is a organization that has brought thousands of people, maybe even 100,000 people
Should ask if they
into
take
the Quad
sponsorships.
Cities. But is it appropriate for me to donate money to them, even though there are times that they absolutely need it, like now when they're trying to clean up after the flood? But at some point, we need to say, you know, pull the reins back and say, let's take a look at this. This is taxpayer money, and, you know, if we're gonna vote on it as a council, then bring it to the council and say, hey, I would like to spend $2 to buy something for, you know, XYZ Corporation. I have no problem with that, as long as it's a council vote, and rather than, okay, Mark just had this wonderful idea that he wanted to go out and buy new flotation vests for the people over at Backwater Gamblers. Would they need it? Yes. Would it promote the city? Yes. Put the city's logo on the back of it.
So.
But it's inappropriate.
If it's legal, you know, if it's not illegal, if it's not immoral, if it's not, I can't even think of all the words I want to think about right now. If it's not, you know, something that you wouldn't do because of your values or your conscience or the law, why should I get a vote on what you want to do with your $4,000 ward account?
Because just like that news article showed, we all get blamed on here. We all are held accountable. So therefore, the majority of the council has to have a say in what goes on here. We have to have some direction from the majority. One person can't say, I'm gonna go spend this way, and then it happens that way. That's why we need a study session to discuss these things, so.
But I think you also have to keep in mind, that $4,000 is not an extension of your salary.
That is-
It is not
that's
your
true.
personal private fund to spend on whatever you feel like
Didn't go to
spending
me.
on.
I agree.
Didn't go to
But
me.
the,
For decision-making.
right, and the purpose of that fund is to go ahead and provide for continuing education, professional development. It's not to go ahead and fund a private personal, if you want to fund something private and personally, then use your money that you get paid for doing this job. But that's not what the $4,000 is for, and I've been getting calls from residents who are really angry about what they're perceiving as a slush fund by each of the aldermen to be used for their own personal use.
One of the thoughts we're going to talk about in study session is maybe to eliminate the $4,000, not have it at all by council members. There's a certain budget dollar amount for travel or a certain budget amount for the whole council.
There's a lot to discuss.
And that, I agree there's a lot, but that is an option, is there is no discretionary spending for each alderman. Is another option.
I mean, it's not like we can afford it.
And Alderwoman Swanson, sorry about that. I agree with everything you said there, that,
Okay.
that is
I
still,
say we
he
move
has
this
the
to
right.
another study session time.
All right,
So Dave, I guess I need some guidance on how to proceed here with expenses. I guess, on what I standpoint? mean, so from what are standpoint? aldermen currently free to spend however they like?
what is, between now and the study
No.
session?
Because that's,
Aldermen are allowed to use their fund as has been set by the policy, with public good, within IRS requirements. I mean, this is not a slush fund. One alderman went off and wasted a whole bunch of money on stupid purchases, whether he wants to sit here and say that they were correct or not. I don't care. But do not characterize my request as I can go off and do whatever I want
well,
with
no,
my funds.
but aldermen at one point had agreed that staff wouldn't question them and they would spend their money and justify it. Is that how we're still doing until we have the study session to
I
decide
don't
on
think
policy?
that was ever the policy.
It-
The
it
policy
was.
was staff will not sit there and say that is an appropriate use, that is not an appropriate use. Does not mean that aldermen were exempt from making that assessment themselves.
They
as to
do.
whether
No,
this
that's
was
what
an
I-
appropriate
exactly.
use.
Well,
I didn't
I
say
heard
that, that's
Alderman
what I meant
tell
to say.
Randy that personally. I seen him tell him.
Yeah, I know that. I'm getting bogged down in the details. Just, I guess, I objected to your characterization. Am I supposed to let aldermen do whatever they want with their funds now? That's frankly
understand.
an unfair way to categorize
Okay,
my
yeah.
request.
I take that back and
Thank you,
we can rephrase it to what told me was the alderman would decide whether it was appropriate or not.
thank you.
And I guess from my standpoint, once again, I don't think until we have either an ordinance or a resolution that we would make the change. You can do that as soon as you Okay. would like to vote on it. On the other hand, with the caveat that you still have to, whatever the state laws require and whatever the IRS requires and within all of the other laws, obviously, otherwise I'm gonna have to call my malpractice carrier. I have to tell you to obey the law.
And I would probably, just a little insight. I mean, we all know everything that came out in the paper. I think everybody's gonna be a little bit careful on what they're choosing to spend their money on, and I would hope that everybody's making wise decisions until we do have the study session and get this all sorted out, so.
Are we working on getting the stuff that the former alderman purchased too? Is it not state law that he has to turn that stuff back in?
In that regard, the question I mean, you certainly, that argument can be made. I guess if you do a replevant action in small claims, you can say, hey, we want it back, and if the court agrees that is in fact, you're no longer a public servant and you have to give that back, then that would be a replevant action to give them that item. If it's an item that can be, as if it's something unique that can't be reduced to
Like some
money damages.
famous painting or something?
Yeah, right, correct. Otherwise, if you could assess a dollar value to it, that would be something they can do as well. Small claims goes up to $10,000 these days. You could probably start, as Alderman Hurt said, you can start with other less invasive and less costly procedures.
Are we pursuing that?
Currently, we are not.
Do we want to spend the money on, I mean, really, I'm sorry, it comes down to money. Do we
Yeah.
really want to spend the money on going down that path for what? Retribution, embarrassment?
It doesn't cost any money to send him a letter.
No, but it does to go down the court path.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
couple steps down the road, but you need to at least make an attempt to,
Send them a letter and see what you get.
Send a letter. I mean, there's
what you get.
probably some purchases coming up on the next approval thing. You know, maybe those things, if they're not approved, then send them a letter over these things. Well, I don't know if we can make official action or whatever. I don't know
Well,
how we
I
make.
can review with
I'm
Dave
just
what
saying,
would be
though, if there's something that
appropriate.
would come up on anybody's,
Yeah.
I mean, then, you know, I think we need to start looking at what those
Correct.
expenses are, and then, you know, we should probably take a look at what those expenses are. And then that also will help guide, maybe in our study session, you know, when we have that, like, okay, this was done, and
Yeah.
just kind of help support the conversation, I guess.
So do you want a study session and a special meeting? And if you want a study session, when do you want the study session?
I would request that we not boot the business registration. We've been waiting on that for months, if not a year.
No, this was the scheduled time for it.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's.
You're talking about a special meeting. Is that what you
Well,
said?
I'm saying, someone mentioned a special meeting, so I'm saying, do you want a special meeting? Or do you want to bump something off of the next meeting, or do you want to put it to the first meeting in July?
Which is July 8th.
July 8th.
I guess I would like to, how about we do it at a study session July 8th? That gives everybody time to think about
Yes.
what they want, what they don't want. They have time to give it to you, and we have time to get it organized instead of throwing it together in 2 weeks.
I agree.
That sounds fine.
I agree
So
with
please
that.
give me some input then, this week, so I can, you know, I know what the council's thinking and what they want discussed, otherwise we won't prepare for it, and then it'll just be a waste of time.
Should we then direct them individually to you and not to the other councilman so that it doesn't violate?
Yeah,
that?
you want to just come to me because you don't care what anyone else thinks about it. That's, you're gonna find that out during the study session. I want your
I care about what my colleagues have to say.
own personal.
You'll
input.
about that at
Right. I don't want other people to weigh in on it until the study session, otherwise I won't get a fair representation.
Okay?
Okay.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. Spaghettis moved and I seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.